When Sir Jim Ratcliffe took control of footballing operations at United, the Manchester-born billionaire was somewhat welcomed in as a homegrown hero, ready to save the club from the dark days of the Glazers. But in just 12 months, he became a punch bag for many fans. So what happened? Let's take a look and you can decide for yourself. The important context here is that over the last 3 years, the club has lost over 300 million quid. And from day dot, Ratcliffe committed to fixing this, which of course is the right thing for the club. But what seemed to get fans' backs up is the way Sir Jim Ratcliffe, accompanied by Sir Dave Brailsford, went about it. For example, talkSPORT understands their lunch options at the Carrington canteen have been reduced to just soup and sandwiches, which the higher-ups at the club say will save them £1 million a year. Now that might make sense for many who don't get free meals at work themselves, but it gets a little bit more picky than that. It was reported that after staff brought some stationery, they were ordered to send sellotape back because it wasn't considered essential. The reward for being Steward of the Week used to be 50 quid, but that was scrapped and replaced by a paper certificate. And such is the grip Ratcliffe has on spending, he reportedly scrapped company credit cards, meaning some staff racking up hundreds of pounds worth of expenses and spending weeks out of pocket waiting to be reimbursed. But it's not just the stingy decisions around the amount of tea bags in the cafeteria. In 2024 alone, Ratcliffe oversaw 250 redundancies and more were announced at the beginning of 2025. Now, while there are people who acknowledge that United's staff numbers are overinflated, it's the optics which aren't great. Because while all this has been going on, Casemiro's getting paid 350 grand a week, and the club forked out 14 million quid getting rid of Eric Ten Hag and Dan Ashworth. But United fans' rage doesn't just stop here at the cuts. Ratcliffe's unpopular decision to introduce a flat ticket price of 66 quid for every fan, even children, certainly did not go down well. For fans, it feels like the very foundation of the club's support is being attacked for the sake of making marginal financial gains. But Ratcliffe has backed it, saying if you shy away from difficult decisions, then nothing is going to change. And time will tell whether these measures will improve operations at the club and help drag standards up on the pitch. But one thing's for sure, his first year wasn't exactly a charm offensive, and there's still a long way to go for United to be back to where many say they belong.
And welcome everybody. This is Paul Dempsey alongside Spencer the Omen Oliver. We bid you a very warm welcome here on talkSPORT, and we start with news that quite honestly we prefer never have to broadcast, but we all know what that is. The passing today of one of the all-time greats of boxing, George Foreman, who left us at the age of 76. He was so much more than a champion boxer, a phenomenon in the sport and beyond. An Olympic gold medalist in 1968 who bulldozed his way through the heavyweight division, knocking out Joe Frazier in 1973 to become a world champion. Terrifying power matched by his presence in the ring. But that was only the first chapter of this make-up story, which has defied belief and logic in so many ways. An incredible comeback 10 years later, a decade away from the sport, rebuilding his life, but he returned in his 40s to defy the odds and reclaim the heavyweights title with a stunning knockout against Michael Moore in 1994, thus becoming the oldest heavyweight champion in the history of boxing at the age of 45. And all the while, outside the ring, endearing himself to America, he became a global icon, loved around the world, a preacher, an entrepreneur, and an inspiration to fighters and fans and human beings everywhere. So tonight, of course, we start by honouring a man whose legacy stands the test of time. Welcome, everybody. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT.
Big George Foreman. Everybody was frightened of him when he fought, and everybody loved him. What a story, what a journey.
He is one of the iconic names of heavyweight boxing, of all boxing.
I had my first boxing match in February of '67. October of '68, I was an Olympic gold medalist.
George Foreman wins the gold medal of the 19th Olympiad in Mexico City.
It was unbelievable because I didn't know I was going to win an Olympic gold medal, and little did I know it would take up all of my life as it did.
When he beats Joe Frazier.
Frazier is down for the 5th time in this fight.
And it was a staggering performance that Foreman literally lifted him off his feet. It was an incredible win.
It is over. It is over. George Foreman is the heavyweight champion of the world.
Fierce and frightening. puncher, George Foreman. 68 knockouts in those 76 victories.
I don't know if Norton can make it. It might be all over right here.
We'll never see another George Foreman.
They may have heard of him, but the one thing they did hear of is the rumble in the jungle.
I can remember being shocked that he hadn't gone down.
Ali hanging on behind the head. Foreman hasn't been able to push Ali off and set him up.
And it became one of the most lovely friendships I've ever had. To this day, I missed him. That's my friend, Muhammad Ali.
Goes down is in the history when you talk about our sport.
That's the ring right there. The world is my ring. All right, George. Thank you very much.
So the job tonight is somehow to do justice to the one and only George Foreman. Thank you very much for having me on the show, everybody here at talkSPORT. The timing could either be not better or not worse, depending. I'm delighted to be here. It's great to be on the show alongside my old dear buddy Spencer Oliver. Great, as we both know, is about the most overused term in all sports. And as we'll probably get to when I start lecturing later, especially in modern boxing, Spencer.
Absolutely.
But does great even begin to touch what we're going to talk about with George?
Absolutely not. I mean, listen, George Foreman, what an incredible human being, not just in the ring, but outside of it as well. His career, as we heard there, was sensational. You know, going on to win the world title, the way that he won it against Joe Frazier, you know, going in against the undefeated Joe Frazier at the time as well. And he just dismantled him in that second round. And it was one of those memorable fights that we'll always remember. And then obviously having a couple of defences, losing it in that memorable fight out in Zaire against Muhammad Ali, 1974, rope-a-dope. Ali sat on the ropes for 7 rounds, and in that 8th round knocked George Foreman out. George punched himself out, and you know, he talks about that so fondly and so honestly as well, about how that went and how he believed that he was just going to have to turn up to win, go into the ring and get the job done against what was considered then an old Muhammad Ali. He was only actually 32 years of age, but you know, he'd had a tough career himself, and he was considered on the slide, and the way that he beat George Foreman was incredible, but the way that George come back was even more incredible. Can I talk about one memorable fight that doesn't ever get talked about with George Foreman? And that was the comeback fight after the defeat against Muhammad Ali, and it was against Ron Lyle. And what a fight that was. Anyone that hasn't seen that fight, go on YouTube, have a look at that. It went down as Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year. It was in 1976. It was 15 months after he lost to Muhammad Ali. He went in there and they had a 5-round war. George Foreman was on the floor a couple of times. Ron Lyle was on the floor a couple of times. Foreman ended up winning that contest. But the second time George Foreman went down, he fell forward, flat on his face. Now, Paul, you've been around boxing for many, many years, and you know when a fighter falls forward, you know, when you think about Roberto Duran when he got knocked out by Tommy Hearns.
You don't get up.
They don't get up. George Foreman got up.
Exactly.
And incredibly, he didn't just get up, he got in there and he put it on Ron Lyle, who was a fearsome puncher as well, and he turned it around. And that was one fight that doesn't get talked about enough. But if anyone wants to see that, go on YouTube. George Foreman versus Ron Lyle. What an incredible... Imagine that as a comeback fight. We don't see those sort of fights.
Spencer, I've got a few more to match up along the way talking about George. And if he were listening to this, I think maybe he would like what I'm about to say, which ties in perfectly with your memory of that Lyle fight. Let's compare eras, shall we?
Yes, please.
Because those guys were truly incredible in an era where the top 10 of boxing, any one of the fighters in the top 10, maybe even the top 15 between 1970 and 78 or 79, they walked to the top of the queue today. They walked to the top of the queue without a problem.
I agree.
There were Lyle and people like that, Ernie Shavers, who doesn't necessarily feature in the narrative that we're going to explore tonight. And incidentally, we've got more memories coming from the United States as well a little bit later. We hope to have Paulie Malignaggi on the line as well. But from month to month, the level of intrigue and the build-up concerning these heavyweights was truly epic in every single way. And this, again, another theme for later on the show tonight, folks, when we're talking about some of the young fighters who are great talents today. But let's keep it real. This was the yardstick, particularly in the heavyweight division. Those 7 or 8 years, Spencer, and of course there was Liston before it, let's not forget that. A fighter, incidentally, that George Foreman studied very closely and sparred with to learn about his technique. Remember Liston's unbelievable jab. But in the first coming of George Foreman, this very surly, aggressive individual, it wasn't him. But you know what? he copied that because Sonny Liston behaved like that.
Absolutely. And it worked for him as well. He was the most feared man in boxing at that time. After knocking out Joe Frazier the way that he did in 1973, Joe Frazier was considered the man. He was coming off that victory over Muhammad Ali. He was going in there as an undefeated fighter, and George Foreman himself was undefeated going in as well. But I think Frazier was like, I don't know, 40-0 or something like that, and he was going in there. And Foreman was maybe considered the underdog, and the way that he dismantled him and went through him, the way that he did, and lifted him off the floor with that final hook that took, it was like a delayed reaction, and Frazier he'd staggered two steps and come off the floor. He was then considered the most feared man in boxing, and you know, he was he really was a fearful fighter, a phenomenal man.
So the names just echo in eternity, of course, and of course right now George is up there alongside Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and all the other superstar fighters who maybe couldn't quite reach the pinnacle but who played such a part. And Spencer has mentioned Ron Lyle. For the moment, if I just could say one other thing, which I don't think has been said enough today about his impact, and very telling to me to see the way other American sports people have reacted to the passing of George Foreman, because I think what's not stated clearly enough, Spencer, given that I've worked on television for quite a long time in my life, is the impact that the Rumble in the Jungle had on the sports broadcasting industry around the world. There were 3 TV moments in the late 60s, early 70s. Man lands on the moon, the World Cup in 1970 in colour, and the fact that some crazy boxing promoters thought that it was a good idea to take the biggest fight in the world to Africa, start at 4 a.m. and then produce one of the most epic encounters in the ring, and it all went off peacefully. Well, more or less peacefully.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely peacefully for George Foreman, maybe, but not, you know, and Muhammad Ali. But what a fight they put on out in Zaire! I believe that was watched by 1 billion people worldwide.
It was the proof that staging these live events by satellite around the world, it was undone before that point. It was not, people didn't believe it. People in the industry didn't believe it could be done without somebody really making a mess of it, and yet it all did work. So for all of those reasons and many more which we're going to explore, then we're going to remember George Foreman fondly beyond tonight, but especially tonight. This is talkSPORT. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Paul Dempsey, alongside the one and only Spencer Oliver. Welcome, everybody. We've got so much more to discuss. The great George Foreman passing, leading for all boxing fans tonight, very much in our consciousness. So please stay with us until 11 o'clock tonight. But also for football fans, we're keeping an eye on Wales' progress, or otherwise, against Kazakhstan tonight in the Cardiff City Stadium. Let's take you there now to join Lawrence Mora. Lawrence.
Wales 1, Kazakhstan 1 is the surprising scoreline after 33 minutes. Kazakhstan have just tucked away a penalty. Taggy Bergen from the spot. His penalty hit the legs of Carl Darlow as the ball went down the middle, and the ball just skidded over the line. So it only just went in, but it was a handball by Connor Roberts, which gave the penalty away. Long VAR check, with Wales claiming that a ball was by his side and he couldn't have got out of the way, Connor Roberts, but the referee gave the penalty and it has been dispatched. And so, after Dan James gave Wales the perfect start on 9 minutes, it's all square. It's Wales 1, Kazakhstan 1.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Not quite a knockout blow, but interesting nonetheless. That was a link that Spencer Oliver handed to me when I came in tonight, and I read that because I wanted to keep him happy.
That was very good.
We're trying
very
to lift the mood here in the talkSPORT studio because we're all so saddened by the passing of a man who I'm just going to name. To me, he doesn't pass. He's immortal. He's George Foreman. His influence on us in boxing and beyond has been so immense. But we're remembering George on both sides of the Atlantic and, of course, all around the world. And along with Spencer and myself here in the talkSPORT studio, now we're going to head over to the USA to gauge some of the early reaction from an old friend and colleague of both of us, former world light welterweight champion, Paulie Malignaggi. Hi, Paulie.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're very sad, actually. And it's sad to speak to you in these circumstances. You may well remember, because we've all been working at ringside together on occasions with George during his HBO heyday, his, third, fourth, fifth career as a great broadcaster. Explain to us, in your own perspective, Paul, his influence, and answer that question in any way you wish.
I think Big George, he had an influence. First and foremost, he was always a very approachable person. You know, I think any fans that always approached Big George, he was this big, gruff, intimidating figure. But when you talk to him, he was always a big teddy bear. And I think anybody who has had interaction with Big George, they could really attest to that. I don't ever hear of anybody ever complaining about having met George and him not being super nice and super engaging and very inviting to the fans and to the people that would talk to him. Having said that, you know, his boxing career in and of itself is a testament to, you know, the self-belief and the mindset that, you know, never giving up can really lead you to great things. And obviously George started out in his career as the favorite of everybody, right? I mean, he was the guy who was knocking everybody out, and everybody figured nobody could beat him. And then all of a sudden he ran into the Ali fight, and suddenly, you know, things went wayward. And a couple of years later, you know, he winds up in the Jimmy Young fight, and he ends up retiring for 10 years. And so at that point, you know, people may have written him off. People may have said, okay, you know, if you really wonder, is George a Hall of Famer at that moment? You know, he's had some championship fights. He's been a world champion. He's lost Ali. He's never regained the title back. And he kind of fell off into obscurity not long after that. Amazing fight with Ron Lyle, if you remember as well. One of the greatest fights. If anybody hasn't seen that, you got to YouTube that fight just in the memory of George.
You don't watch. You need to watch the Spencer Oliver show a bit more often. He's just done all that. And Spencer explained the whole story.
I'm glad. So, great minds think alike.
Absolutely, you know? Paulie. Listen, anyone that's not seen that fight, they've not seen a real fight. I mean, that is insane, man.
Absolutely. So, but what I love is George takes off 10 years, and in his comeback after 10 years, goes on this entire magnificent run, which to me is what made him a Hall of Famer. Because just becoming a champion, to me, doesn't necessarily make you a Hall of Famer. But to me, when he comes back, he's got the opposite effect now. He's loving. He's not this intimidator anymore. But at the same time, really nobody believes in him. Nobody really thinks he's going to go and challenge these top heavyweights at this moment in time, and let alone win a heavyweight championship. And that's exactly what he does. He goes through the years of his comeback. You know, he gets some wins over guys like Jerry Cooney, and then suddenly, you know, he's in competitive matchups with Evander Holyfield and stuff like that. He comes up short for the heavyweight title, but he finally gets it against Michael Moore. And we all remember that amazing call by Jim Lampley where it happened. And again, it's the rise up from the ashes, so to speak. It's the self-belief after people have written you off so much. It's the don't let anybody tell you what you can't do, because if you have the self-belief and the wherewithal to go and do it yourself, that's what you can accomplish. And I think the life and legacy of Big George comes from that. You know, it's a tale of two boxing careers, but one man who also had a really big image change from this intimidator to this fun-loving teddy bear. And like you said, I mean, he also had an amazing career as a commentator. He was on the call for my fight against Miguel Cotto, and he was and for me, it's always a positive memory for me, because George was one of the guys on that commentating team that was talking very positively of me on that night during that fight, and that's something that I've always kept in my locker, you know, because obviously he's a classic historical figure in boxing, and to have had him on the call of such a big fight in my career also meant a lot. But yeah, sad day today. Obviously, these things are part of life, and it's the circle of life. But certainly, I think George Foreman would have wanted us to remember his career and him as a person in the way we're remembering him right now, and not to be too sad, because George got the most out of his life. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, besides the career, the boxing career, the commentating career, this engaging figure, the George Foreman grill also made him super successful financially as well. So, I mean, he done it all. George really lived a very complete life, and I think he got the most out of his 76 years. And I think for that reason, it's also we can celebrate his life today.
Absolutely, it is a celebration, and I'm glad you mentioned the George Foreman grill there, mate, because he sold over 100 million of those. I think every one of us has had one at some point, haven't we? And I mean, what a success that was, and he earned a phenomenal amount of money selling that business as well. But you touched on it there. You know, it takes a special fighter. You don't get these coming around too often. 1974, he loses his world title after winning it in 73 against Joe Frazier in a phenomenal performance. Loses it in 74 to Ali in Zaire, and then you go, like you say, he loses that fight to Jimmy Young, retires, becomes a minister, disappears for 10 years, comes back. But to win it back in 1994, so I say he loses it in 74, wins it back 20 years later, that takes a special person, a special fighter. That doesn't happen often. And he had a successful career long after that, for another few years after that as well. Paulie, you know, that has to be respected.
Yeah, that has to be respected, and also, you know, not just respected, but also it's a very inspiring story too.
Absolutely,
you know, because people can look at that and say, you know, no matter what you're going through in life, people may write you off.
Now you're getting to it, Paulie. This is the forgive me for cutting you, but now you are getting to it. This is the bigger impact of the life and times of George Foreman, and why you're all special, you guys who do what you do, the crazy thing that you do for a living, all of you. However, that is what makes boxers different in so many ways, and it's the lives away from boxing that he touched through his example. That's what separates him, as it does with so many of the other great boxing figures.
Yeah, indeed, and for those of us that saw his second career, you know, we know, you know, he was always a big puncher, but it wasn't easy, man. You know, it wasn't easy to get there. He had some very tough fights on that comeback trail, and I remember a lot of people just thinking it was sort of a gimmick and a joke. And what did he do? Instead of getting angry about it, I can remember him taking a plate of cheeseburgers and just eating it, saying, like, you know, he was basically embracing the old man, Big George kind of image, instead of getting angry at the media for making a mockery of it and making a joke out of it. And in the end, he ended up winning a heavyweight championship in a major upset.
But my memory, I mentioned to Spencer when we came in, I was a little bit late for reasons I'll go on to explain in a moment. But when I came in and we were talking about, George, how we'd set this up with you, to your point, very much to your point, because I was in America a lot at that time covering some of these fights involving George and obviously others, and there were people who are going, it's a little bit phony, all this. He can't fight anymore. Fair play, he's reinventing himself and he's doing fabulously commercially, as Spencer reminded everybody. But when it came to it, you remember Alex Stewart, Tommy Morrison, even Jerry Cooney was still quotes live to get to the big fights.
And the Alex Stewart fight, for somebody who was of an older age, that was violent. That was a rough fight.
Against a mover, and he never liked the movers.
Yep. And then, you know, he didn't beat on himself when he came up short in the fights against Morrison and Holyfield, you know, because he knew he'd been competitive enough to say, I can do this. I can compete in this fight.
Absolutely.
And even against Moore, if you look at the Moore fight, he's losing almost every round, but he's continuing to believe in himself, continuing to stick with the plan, and he gets him out of there because that big power, he knew he always had in the back of his head, his mind.
And we must remember Michael Moorer, for people that don't remember Michael Moorer, he was the light heavyweight world champion that went up to heavyweight, was dominant at heavyweight as well. And when he lost lost to Big George, he was only 26 years of age, still very much in his prime. That was a huge win there.
He just taken the title off Holyfield.
Absolutely.
And what was that moment like at the end of it when George has won? And I'm probably going to tear up for the first of several times tonight now, Spencer. Remember, when he turned away, Paul, you remember this, I'm sure, very well indeed. He turned away and he went down on his knees amid this hysteria. People, it was one of those heavyweight moments that we were talking about the 70s before you came on the show, and we'll talk more about some of the other I cannot believe it moments in the history of heavyweight boxing. But that was right up there, wasn't it? That moment, George Foreman is the world champion again.
It was unexpected. It was unexpected in his comeback, and it was unexpected that night. And if you were watching that fight, it was unexpected in that fight as well. You know, it was just one surprise after another after another. Again, the power of self-belief, the power of putting it into action and not just speaking it, but also in going out and doing it and doing the work for it. Big George was a big example of that.
Paulie, you said what a beautiful, humble guy George Foreman is, and me and Paul are going to express our feelings towards that and our meetings with him as well. We're going to talk about that through the show. But what was your special moment with George Foreman? Give us your special moment. You know, I know you will have had many of them, but give us one of them.
Each time I'd met George, he was always engaging. Like I said, he was always very nice. Always would crack a little joke at you, kind of to break the ice. You know, he was, he wasn't a serious guy, which is so funny because obviously, if anybody probably met him in the '70s, he was the opposite with that scowl and never smiling and all that stuff. But I got the happy George. You know, I got the George who was, obviously post-career and satisfied and was well aware of his accomplishments and just wanted everybody else to also be able to accomplish their dreams as well. And that's sort of the energy I always got from George when I got to see him. He was always, like I said, always engaging, always nice. Like I said, we'll always crack a joke to break the ice. And like I said, for me personally, he was on the call for my fight with Miguel Cotto. He was on that broadcast team, and it was a really great broadcast team. And he was one of the guys on that broadcast team, which was saying some really positive things about me.
Which you deserved, incidentally, for your own great career. Paulie, lovely talking to you again. Thank you very much for joining us here on talkSPORT and for sharing the memories.
I want to make one more note. Livingston Bramble also died yesterday, guys.
Thank you for that.
Champion, the former flamboyant lightweight world champion. In fact, we all remember him taking the title from Ray Mancini, and he was also a flamboyant, colorful guy and a very good champion. He also passed away. I know he's going to probably get pushed under the rug because he happened to die the same day as Big George, but I want to give a big memory to Livingston Bramble as well, who was also a guy who deserves his name mentioned today.
Well said,
Paulie. Well said, mate.
A very timely reminder of another outstanding boxer. Thank you very much indeed, Paulie Malignaggi. And just to close out this little part of the show, and we're leaning on George again here, Spenny.
Yeah.
All the sons with the name George.
Yeah.
Why did you do that, George?
Yeah.
And the dad said, well, that's because we all go down together and we all go up together.
There you go.
Which was beautiful.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We're all in it together tonight, remembering the one and only George Foreman. We're going to cut away very shortly and take our listeners and viewers, indeed viewers, on talkSPORT to the O2 Arena. It's a big night for UFC action, and that's coming up on talkSPORT. Fight night here on talkSPORT. Welcome back, everybody. The one and only Spencer Oliver alongside myself, Paul Dempsey. I'm very grateful for the invitation on the night we remember and mark the passing of one of the all-time greats of boxing, the all-time great sports people of all time, George Foreman. Much more to come on that. Many more great boxing talking points as well, but as I was rudely put in my place, deservedly by Spencer Oliver when I arrived over an hour late, thanks to the London traffic, then I've got to do a bit of explaining. The main reason, the hordes of people on their way to the O2 for an incredible night of UFC action, so it wasn't all my fault.
You're forgiven, Paul. You're forgiven.
Now bring in a proper talkSPORT expert in the O2 arena, the one and only Adam Catterall. Adam, it's all yours.
Paul, Spence, listen, great to hear you boys doing your thing. I am currently watching Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Charrier do their business inside the O2. Before I tell you all about tonight and what it means for British mixed martial arts, you've just brought up George Foreman there, of course, and everybody in the world of fight sports is incredibly sad at his passing at the age of 76. But we just paid a tribute inside the O2 arena. So just to prove how great Big George was, he transcends the sports as well. Obviously, it's combat sport, I get it, and a lot of mixed martial arts derived from the love of boxing, and Dana White and the UFC paid a tribute to George Foreman in between the prelims and the main card tonight. So a round of applause was heard inside the O2 arena for Big George Foreman. I just thought I'd let you boys know.
Thank you.
About
fantastic
that.
Touch, great touch.
Yeah, that is fantastic. It just shows that, you know, that how big George Foreman was. He you know, he's far bigger than just boxing himself. I think that the George Foreman grill, we put his name on the map. Adam, as you know, you probably had one of those yourself, didn't you?
Several, mate. Several. You can see by my derby, I've had a few of them. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, listen, what's going on down there tonight, mate? Tell us all about it. I know the main event there, we got Leon Edwards going in, Sean Bradley. But talk to us a little bit about what's going on down there tonight and how it's looking.
Yeah, in main event, it is Leon Edwards. Obviously, last time out was something against Bilal Muhammad. He was the welterweight champion. He lost his world title in that fight in Manchester last year. We haven't seen him since. Tonight, he's taking on Sean Brady. It was supposed to be Jack Della Maddalena, but he then got moved into the title picture against Bilal. So it's Sean Brady tonight. Two top contenders wanting to get themselves back into the title mix. And it's an interesting, stylistic matchup. You've got Leon, who's a fantastic striker, taking on Sean, that comes from that wrestling background. So it's going to be interesting to see how that fight plays out in the main event. We've got a cracker in the co-main, two big light heavyweights. There won't be any messing about in that one because it's pure strikers, pure kickboxers with a lot of power on show with Jan Blachowicz and Carlos Ulberg. The fight that's actually going on right now was my tip for fight of the night, and it is playing out that way. A bit of a chess match between Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Charrier, the Englishman and the Frenchman, just finishing the second round. Nathaniel Wood had Morgan Charrier down in the first round, but he managed to recover incredibly well. And we've got a cracker coming up in a moment or two with Jordan Vucenic of England taking on Chris Duncan of Scotland. You know what that rivalry is like across the sporting world, boys. England versus Scotland throwing down in a fist fight in the O2 arena. It should be an absolute crackerjack.
Yeah, brilliant. Listen, talk to us a little bit about the crowd that we've got in there. UFC, we know, is growing all the time. Adam, is it a full house in there tonight?
Yeah, always is, mate. I mean, we're in a different position in mixed martial arts compared to the world of boxing. Obviously, limited amount of shows from the UFC come to the UK. We normally get one every single March, and then maybe another one floats in throughout the course of the year, depending on whether we've got a world champion or not. So this is their annual visit to the UK. So the tickets, mate, they go within seconds. The fans come out in their droves to show their appreciation for all the martial artists on show. And we're in a good position because there's a lot of British martial artists on show that are doing incredibly well, getting ranked in various divisions that could have really big years. Tonight, we're not going to see Tom Aspinall, we're not going to see Paddy Pimblett because they've been the product of these English shows. Tom, obviously, fingers crossed, he's going to get that John Jones fight later on in the year for the heavyweight championship. And we've got Paddy Pimblett fighting in a couple of weeks' time out in Miami against Michael Chandler. So tonight is an opportunity for the guys and girls out of the shadow of those two superstars to really shine and maybe get what they earn a little bit later on in the year.
Well, come on then, Catman, give it to us. What's the fight of the night? What's the one that you're most looking forward to?
Next up, boys. So I know that you're in the studio there and you've got the facilities to whack the old TNT Sports on, right? So get it on. The next fight, Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan, England versus Scotland. There won't be any backward steps. Just something, Spence, it'd be like watching you fight back in the day. I know that you're a beautiful boxer, mate, but when someone You know what I mean? Bites down on the gum shield and beckons you in. I knew that you always wanted it, pal.
Yeah, absolutely.
His name was Patrick Mullins.
Absolutely. And I've got to tell you as well, that England-Scotland rivalry, mate, when we used to box as amateurs and we had that team rivalry, oh boy. Yeah. So, yeah, that alone's enough to get you excited.
There you go, mate. Bit of England-Scotland coming up next in the shape of the Omen himself, Mr. Spencer Oliver. That's what you can enjoy.
There you go. Brilliant stuff.
Last word. What are the omens for tonight? Prediction time, Adam. I know we're not supposed to do this to each other. And I hate when people do that to me. I'm sorry about that. You owe me one for that. Oh, what's your gut feeling tonight?
In the main event, I think if Leon Edwards applies more output to his game that we didn't see in Manchester, he will be victorious. He's a sensational striker. But if he is reluctant, if he is waiting for Sean Brady, Sean will take advantage of all of that. He'll shoot on him. He'll get him up against the fence. He'll grapple heavy, and he could eke out a decision. I hope, obviously, for these British fans that have paid the money tonight to come and watch Leon Edwards win, it is the former. We see that aggression, and we get to see something spectacular.
Brilliant, Adam. Thank you very much indeed. Talk Sports. Adam Cattrall, live from the UFC London at the O2. This is Talk Sport. More from Spencer Oliver and me, Paul Dempsey, in a moment. You know what? Catching those guys out was difficult. I've got no chance on this show, have I? Let's be honest. Welcome back, everybody. Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Paul Dempsey. Honoured to be in the studio, even in these most saddest of circumstances, for true lovers of boxing. George Foreman passing today, and that is very much our main topic of conversation throughout the show, alongside the one and only Spencer Oliver. And why don't we now start to talk about the Olympic Games?
Yeah, well, listen, Paul, just just before we get to the Olympic Games, I want to throw something at you here. I'm going to throw something at you. I've been coming up with an idea. Now, we've worked together for over 30 years. I've known you for over 30 years. And I want to put you on the spot a little bit.
Order, Spencer. You've got to stick to the running
order.
order.
Mate, but I want to put you on the spot a little bit.
Is this okay with the producer?
Listen, he's got no choice because I'm doing it now. And it's called the PD Special. Yeah, the PD Personal Mike Questions. I want to throw some questions at you. You never give me the answers. You've always put me on the spot.
No,
and now it's my turn.
My job is to ask the questions.
I know, but I want to lighten the mood, yeah, after the sad news of of losing George Foreman. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun with this. And I'm going to start, right? So I've got 5 questions to ask you. And
About
I'll ask
what?
This is the exciting bit.
Is it all boxing related?
It is pretty much all boxing related. But I want to start off with question number 1, and I'm going to feed you the others through the show. I'm just going to throw them in, actually, randomly. But here's the first one. What is your biggest bugbearer in boxing? What is your biggest bugbearer?
The thing that gets my most in boxing.
Yeah, because I know that you're a guy that is, you can be a little bit sentimental at times, and so I'd like to know what that is.
As you've completely sprung this upon me, Spencer, and I've had no time to consider what I would say in answer to that question. That's naughty.
Yeah,
I got wind of it during the break. Let me level with the people listening and watching with us on talkSPORT. My biggest bugbear in boxing, as you've got me started, you were at it, everybody's been at it. Love professional boxers, love everything about them, the way they work, the way they prepare and all that. But there is one dirty trick that it seems to me no boxer is beneath using when it suits him. Do you know what it is?
Go on.
When boxers lose their gum shield, right? I feel very strongly that, having never taken a shot in my life, thank the powers that be, I don't think that the round should be stopped. And most certainly it should not be stopped more than once if a fighter continues to lose the gum shield, right? And the reason why I really get going about it, and as you know, I get going about it, and I mean it, it's because basically what happens when fighters lose the gum shield, the momentum drops in the round.
Yep.
And very often, in fact, nearly on all known occasions in the history of boxing, when the gum shield comes out once, blow me, it comes out again. 30 seconds later. And when that happens, you may as well put an X through the round, because the fight is stopped for the guts of a minute. The referee goes, they stop the clock, but the momentum drops completely. And when you restart, as you well know, somebody may have been on the offensive, somebody have been really feeling the pressure. Oh, I've just remembered the real reason why fighters spit the gum shield out.
Yeah, I mean...
They're not bottling the job, Spencer. No, listen, you're made different to the rest of us. You're trying to buy time.
Most gum shields...
And I'm trying to eat into your time so that we can move on.
Most gum shields are made to fit, so it's very difficult for them to come out. And the reason a boxer will lose the gum shield, if you like, is that on 9 times out of 10, the occasion is that he's been hurt, and he's been hurt quite badly.
Exactly.
But this is the defence for your question, or your answer to that question. The defence is, if the gum shield does come out, the reason that the fight is stopped and the gum shield has to be put back in, because I've had this before when I haven't had a gum shield in, if you get hit with, let's say you're really tired, or you've been hurt badly and the gum shield's come out and you're really tired and the mouth comes open a little bit and you get hit with an uppercut and the tongue's just over the teeth and the shot goes up.
Oh, unimaginably painful.
You're going to bite your tongue off.
Of course, I know.
So that's the reason for it, but fighters are guilty of spitting that out to buy a bit of time for sure.
Do you think the time has come where fighters should be told, listen, one per round maximum. If the gum shield comes out, we're stopping it. If it comes out again, you are liable to have a point deducted. What about that?
3 and you're out.
Over the course of the fight.
Listen, because fighters go to dentists, they have the gum shields made, so they fit in
and you're using it every single day.
Once you put those in, it's like putting false teeth in. They don't come back out very, very easy. I mean, I don't know what that's like, putting false teeth in, by the way.
Well, why are you looking at me?
I've not got there just yet, but it's like putting false teeth in, and so it doesn't come out easily. So yeah, I understand your argument, but
you're not having it, are you? Because you think I've turned against professional boxers?
No, I don't.
On the record, I have not turned against professional boxers.
I just don't want to see loads of fighters walking around with half a tongue.
It's a fair point, but they didn't say that to John L. Sullivan in 1890, did they?
Yeah. Did they have gum shields then?
No, of course they didn't. And that's... I'm a traditionalist.
Fair play. Fair play. Did they have teeth then?
Probably not. We're going to get into trouble. Can we get on with the show? What are we talking about?
Well, listen, by the way, through the rest of the show, I've got four other questions for you. Do you want me to throw you another one now, or should we move on? Let's go to the Olympics. I'll throw to the Olympics.
Yes, all right, let's do that. Go on.
Let's go.
What do you think?
Let's go. So what do I think about Olympics being reinstalled into the 2028 LA Games? Yeah, the boxing in the Olympics. I'm so happy. You know, I covered the last ones. We were out in Paris, and there was big talk, serious talks of the boxing not coming back in. And can I say, by the way, Paul, not a lot of people will know this, Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, is instrumental in getting boxing back into the Olympics. He's gone back to his roots, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters of our modern generation, and he's got boxing back in there. He has a chair on the IOC in the Olympic Committee, and he has got boxing back into the Olympics, which is a fantastic move. We needed it, didn't we, in LA? How can you go to America with no boxing?
Massive point, Spencer, given the legacy of American... The USA are still actually top of the all-time gold medal list in boxing.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure they are.
That's fairly mind-blowing, given that the level of performance by US boxers has tailed off so much. But offhand, I haven't checked this, but I think it's 50 gold medals in history.
Yeah.
And, you know, some really strong nations in boxing like Britain have got 20.
And could this revive boxing out in the States? Because as we know, I mean, we never had a world champion, world heavyweight champion for, I don't know, 100 years or so before we got Lennox Lewis. And I mean, you know, now we look now and we've got, you know, we've had Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, just to name a couple. But like the success now is coming from our shores. Boxing has died somewhat
and it's gone
out
global.
in America.
It's gone global.
Absolutely. And boxing's died somewhat.
To go backwards, just to remind everybody, what happened was that in 2022, the IOC had to present its initial draft program for the Los Angeles Olympics. And everybody looked at the list when it came out and went, well, where's the boxing? And the IOC turned around to the world and said, we have been telling you for a few years that we're unhappy with the governance in boxing, and when we say that boxing's future is in jeopardy in the Olympic movement, you better start believing what we're saying. Then there was an immense furore all around the world. One of the things to non-boxing people, I always try to point out to them, actually, how many truly global sports are there? How many sports are there that are actually pursued in every country in the world?
Great point.
For me, it's football and boxing.
Yeah.
I have to say that. And obviously people run in all countries, so you could add athletics and you could add swimming. However, in terms of being an organised endeavour, boxing is right up there, and that's obviously part of the reason why it's been so important historically for the Olympic movement. But the pressure was growing all the time, and that was the big wake-up call when the IOC said, to your point, in the United States of all places, in Los Angeles, there may be no boxing. In the interim, for Tokyo and for Paris, the IOC said, well, we are now completely unhappy with the governance of amateur boxing globally.
Yeah.
So, as a compromise in the short term, we will take it in-house. But the IOC could not commit to doing that longer term because it's a very complex business, qualifying fighters all around the world, number one, in qualifying tournaments, because it's a global sport.
Yeah.
And also because the IOC have got to be seen to be fair and even-handed, and in terms of the global reach of the Olympic Games, whatever anybody's personal interest, if you're a fan of wrestling, you have every right to consider that your sport is the equal of the other sports, and that's a really important principle in the Olympic movement. And if they're seen to be favouring boxing and pushing too much to keep boxing, other sports have got the perfect right to say, hang on a minute, it's about more, it's not the World Boxing Olympics, it's the Olympic Games.
Yes, sure.
So it reached a crisis point, and in the crisis what happened was that the IBA, who has been the governing body of record, was pushed to the side, and a new governing body has now and voted and approved this very week, which is why we're talking about it, World Boxing. That is now to be recognised by IOC as the governing body for the conduct of Olympic boxing.
They needed new governance.
I can say, just in the nick of time.
Absolutely. Listen, that's the grassroots of the sport. You know, we wouldn't get the likes of Big George Foreman, who won the Olympics out in Mexico in 1968. You wouldn't have had your Muhammad Ali's. You wouldn't have had your Floyd Mayweathers. All these guys that have come through the system you know, that system creates them and puts them on the trajectory to get to where they get to in professional boxing. Without the Olympics, there's no grounding, no grassroots, and boxing would have been in a terrible, terrible state. And it was a serious matter. When we were out in Paris, they were talking about this and saying, listen, you've got until, we were in August then, you've got until January to sort this out, which is not a lot of time to sort a governance out of that magnitude. You've got until January or boxing's gone. It was a big worry. It was a real 50-50 whether it was going to remain. So thank God for the, you know, for the sport of boxing, it remains.
Spencer was a top amateur boxer, and in just a moment what I will ask Spencer is what he feels this impact is for all the boys and girls who are now 10, 11, 12 who are trying to make the Olympics their dream. Hold the thought for a moment, Spencer. Quickly, we're going to go to the Cardiff City Stadium. Lawrence Moore has now got the update on the game between Wales and Kazakhstan tonight. Lawrence.
Yeah, Wales 2, Kazakhstan 1. Craig Bellamy would have sent his side out, demanding an early goal, and they got it. 2 minutes after the restart, Ben Davies heading in Sorba Thomas's corner to put his side back in front. 50 minutes gone, Wales 2, Kazakhstan 1.
Nice and short.
All right, Lawrence, thank you very much indeed. Spencer, back to the restoration, if you like, or the guarantee that Olympic boxing will continue. The most important factor, even George Foreman himself said it recently, you know, it's about the dreams of kids.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Listen, it's every kid's dream. And, you know, you got the boys and girls of all the clubs now that are just so packed out with everybody inspiring to be that next champion. And when you're a young kid, when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, you can box at 11 years of age. When you're of that age, you're not thinking about money and world titles. You're thinking about Olympic medals. That is the dream. And that's the inspiration for all these young kids. So thank God that boxing still remains.
And I cannot also argue as a tailpiece to this, you know, as a commercial proposition for the good of the Olympic movement and for the general sport of boxing, what it means to people all around the world, as evidenced by the outpouring of emotion following the passing today of George Foreman. It's a marriage, and they need each other very badly indeed. So, boxing's got away with it. Boxing has a strange way of getting away with things sometimes. More from Spencer Oliver in a moment or two here on Fight Night Live on talkSPORT, where we will be joined very shortly by Caroline Dubois.
When Sir Jim Ratcliffe took control of footballing operations at United, the Manchester-born billionaire was somewhat welcomed in as a homegrown hero, ready to save the club from the dark days of the Glazers. But in just 12 months, he became a punch bag for many fans. So what happened? Let's take a look and you can decide for yourself. The important context here is that over the last 3 years, the club has lost over 300 million quid. And from day dot, Ratcliffe committed to fixing this, which of course is the right thing for the club. But what seemed to get fans' backs up is the way Sir Jim Ratcliffe, accompanied by Sir Dave Brailsford, went about it. For example, talkSPORT understands their lunch options at the Carrington canteen have been reduced to just soup and sandwiches, which the higher-ups at the club say will save them 1 million quid a year. Now that might make sense for many who don't get free meals at work themselves, but it gets a little bit more picky than that. It was reported that after staff brought some stationery, they were ordered to send sellotape back because it wasn't considered essential. The reward for being Steward of the Week used to be 50 quid, but that was scrapped and replaced by a paper certificate. And such is the grip Ratcliffe has on spending, he reportedly scrapped company credit cards, meaning some staff racking up hundreds of pounds worth of expenses and spending weeks out of pocket waiting to be reimbursed. But it's not just the stingy decisions around the amount of tea bags in the cafeteria. In 2024 alone, Ratcliffe oversaw 250 redundancies and more were announced at the beginning of 2025. Now, while there are people who acknowledge that United staff numbers are overinflated, it's the optics which aren't great. Because while all this has been going on, Casemiro's getting paid 350 grand a week, and the club forked out 14 million quid getting rid of Eric Ten Hag and Dan Ashworth. But United fans' rage doesn't just stop here at the cuts. Ratcliffe's unpopular decision to introduce a flat ticket price of 66 quid for every fan, even children, certainly did not go down well. For fans, it feels like the very foundation of the club's support is being attacked for the sake of making marginal financial gains. But Ratcliffe has backed it, saying if you shy away from difficult decisions, then nothing is going to change. And time will tell whether these measures will improve operations at the club and help drag standards up on the pitch. But one thing's for sure, his first year wasn't exactly a charm offensive, and there's still a long way to go for United to be back to where many say they belong.
Great to have your company on Fight Night on talkSPORT. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. However you are listening or watching tonight, Paul Dempsey alongside the one and only Spencer Oliver. And may I start in this part by saying, what a team of writers and producers working under you here tonight, Spencer.
They really are.
Who else could have dreamt of the one football match featuring the show to be between Wales and Kazakhstan?
Unbelievable, right?
The homeland.
When we talk about Triple G.
I just don't know how you do it. You must get up very early to write all this stuff.
Mate, it's not me, it's Hodge. It's our producer, Hodge, mate.
Obviously, he's a whiz kid, clearly.
Absolutely.
But does it go back to when you used to have to get up at 5 o'clock and go running on Hampstead Heath? You're awake early, thinking, working, planning.
You know, I'm still that guy, you know.
Yeah,
I'm still that guy. Well, I don't quite go running on Hampstead Heath, but I wake up still early.
Plenty more coming on the show tonight. Our heavyweight scene, of course. Caroline Dubois will be joining us very soon here in the talkSPORT studio as she continues her exciting journey, hopefully in the direction of the top. The delicious one, Delicious Ori, and Michaela Mayer also featuring on the show, and we will continue to pay our tributes to the immortal George Foreman, who left us all behind today, much sadder at the age of 76. What's coming next here on the show?
Mr. Dempsey, before we get to the current top 10 heavyweights, and that's quite an interesting one because there's a good mix of those. There's a good 15 of them that you could put in that top 10. So it's going to be a little bit controversial maybe. Before we get there, we started off this thing and I said I wanted to lighten the mood and, you know, I wanted to do the PD personal, my questions to you, get the answers that I've never got over the last 30 years.
We've done this now.
Well, no, we've done the biggest bugbear. We've done that one. I want to ask you another one, and this is going to lead us on quite nicely, I believe. Number 2, the most overrated fighter. In your opinion, who's the most overrated fighter in history?
You didn't used to be like this years ago. You were a nicer, kinder person.
It's taken me 30 years to get here.
The most overrated fighter of my time doing this unbelievable
In your
job.
opinion?
You want a serious answer? Because
Yes,
I think it will offend a lot of people. And I'm not interested in offending people, but you've asked me, and for whatever it's worth, which is nothing, my opinion.
I can't wait for this.
The most overrated fighter of my time covering boxing, at the top level, Mike Tyson.
Wow. And why?
Okay, so the reasons I say it, Spencer, are the people who were around him when he was first getting into boxing in his brief amateur career. Glenn McCroy is an example. People who spent time around him said that even in those days, as a boxer, they saw fundamental flaws in his temperament. And there is an argument to say that the people who guided him through the early years in boxing were very cognizant of them, but they realised, obviously, he had an incredible talent. Please, everybody, just understand the context in which I answer this question. I'm not questioning his talent. I'm not questioning that he was incredibly exciting. He's definitely the fastest heavyweight I've ever seen, ever. But I'm saying, in the long scope of history, in my opinion, he has been overrated. And the most important reason on this night of all nights, when we talk about one of the greatest periods, perhaps the greatest period in the history of the heavyweight division, name me the number of fighters that Mike Tyson beat who even could justify getting in the ring with any of the top 10 from the mid-1970s.
I understand your argument, but I think that when you look at Mike Tyson becoming the youngest ever world heavyweight champion, and the way that he...
That's just a gimmick.
No, but the way that he dismantled Trevor Berbick, the way that he done that, the way he went through Tyrell Biggs, who was an Olympic gold medalist, you look at those ones, and the way that he knocked out... Who was the other guy that he knocked out? Spinks, Michael Spinks. That was incredible. 90 seconds.
Michael Spinks was a good fighter.
Straight and Spinks was a great fighter. So I think that when you look at those early years of from 86 when he won the world title, and you go 87, 88, until the loss to Buster Douglas, Tokyo 1990, that loss then, that was the beginning of the end for Mike Tyson. I think that was the undoing of him. Okay. Those 4 years, I believe he was... I think you could put him in the top... You could definitely put him in the top 10 greatest heavyweights.
But the whole point of the storyline tonight, the narrative, to use a posh phrase, about George Foreman and many of the other greats of boxing is it's what they achieve in the round. It's the whole of the body of their work. It's so often in boxing the comeback story. So when he loses to Buster Douglas, to me, it's the requirement. It's an imperative to be a great boxer. It's what is going to happen next, because anybody can lose. Anybody can lose their way in boxing or in life. But it's how Joe Frazier got up 6 times against George Foreman. And after the first, he knew he was beaten. But he got up 6 times in one fight. That's what greatness is, to me.
And if you're using comparisons and you talk about George Foreman losing to Muhammad Ali in 1974, and then 20 years later knocking out Michael Moorer in 10 rounds in a comeback.
And what happened in the case of Mike Tyson?
I get that.
Everything has to be framed around the awful background in which he came, etc. But another of that again is not a defence per se for me, because they're, as you know, so much better than me. One of the other reasons why I admire all you guys so many of you come from the most tough backgrounds, deprived places, and you make the best of what you've got in life, and that's why boxers serve as normally such great role models for the rest of us.
Listen, I think it's a great conversation, and it'd be interesting to hear what actually our listeners think of that, because
hammer me if you want.
I mean,
he put me on the spot, but that's what I believe.
Tyson, for me, in his prime, and that was a very short time, maybe 3 years or so.
Is my point.
But he was phenomenal then. But that leads us nicely, Paul, into the current top 10 heavyweights. Where do you rank the current top 10 heavyweights? Can I give you my current top 10 list right now? I'm going to give you my current top 10 list right now, yeah? Alexander Usyk will go in as number 1. Fair comment? Daniel Dubois goes in a solid number 2.
Yeah.
Joseph Parker, for me, goes in at number 3. Now, do we throw Tyson Fury in the mix? Is he still around? Is he still not around? Let's say he's semi-retired. He said he's retired, but we all believe he's going to come back. So I'm going to put Fury in there just to keep his name in the mix right now, because I believe we see him back in the ring. Here goes number 5, Agit Kabayel. What an incredible fighter, and I think he's the guy that's gone under the radar, and he is the guy who just knocked out Zheli Zhang, and that guy is the danger man of the whole division. Then this is going to become controversial to lots of listeners out there right now, and I'll be getting bombarded with messages now. I'm putting Anthony Joshua in at number 6. I think he's still very much a figure in the heavyweight division. Martin Bakole goes in at number 7, and the reason he's down at number 7 now is because he took that fight at last minute notice, turned up in terrible shape against Joseph Parker, but it was about opportunity. He turned up and he took the opportunity, but he got dismantled in 2 rounds. So for that reason, he goes in at number 7. Number 8 for me has to be Zhilei Zhang. I'll put Zhilei Zhang in there at number 8. He's big, he's dangerous, quick hands. Number 9, I'm going to throw Fabio Wardley in the mix. Not talked about enough. I think he's going to get a massive opportunity coming up very, very soon. We're going to get that news breaking. I believe he's going to be fighting for the WBA regular title, and I believe that fight will happen at Ipswich Stadium sometime in the summer, and that could be against Kubrat Pulev. And people will remember, I think he's 43 years of age now, but WBA regular champion. And here's the one, number 10. And this is the kid, for me, who's going to be the future of heavyweight boxing, Moses Atoma. And he's only 20 years of age. He was looking to break that record of Mike Tyson. He's got until, I think, May the 19th to do that. I thought, actually, he might go in against Kubrat Pulev and break that record, winning the WBA regular. I'm not sure that's going to happen now, but I put him in at number 10. But, you know, there's an argument there. Filip Hrgovic is still around, and, you know, he could be making a comeback. There's a lot of good fighters that I've not mentioned there, but that's my current top 10 crop of heavyweights. We're in a good place right now with heavyweight boxing.
It is amazing, and you're not mentioning several other, mainly British youngsters actually outside there. Some of them are new to the division, and they've already had good professional careers. It's an amazing time, and we're also very privileged, especially older people like me, Spencer, to be able to say that it is such exciting times. Can I start with Atoma?
Yes, please.
And can we please stop all this nonsense about emulating Tyson? Can we stop with that?
Yep, you can stop with that, yeah.
I think it's completely unfair on him. It's a gimmick. In all likelihood, it's all hot air because it's not going to happen because the window is shutting. And I think, personally, it would have been about the worst thing that could have happened to Moses Atoma. Yep. To have had that put on his shoulders had he somehow won a version of the World Heavyweight title over the last 2 years.
Well, I spoke to Frank Warren about that, and Frank said that's why they're not rushing him into this. And Frank is he's the best at guiding fighters to the top. And he said, Spence, it's not the fact that I don't think he could beat someone like Anthony Joshua right now, but if he does that, he's up there in those, and he's got nowhere to go. He can't go backwards. He can only go forwards. He's 20 years of age, and we believe that we've got the future of boxing. Let's take our time with him. Let's enjoy him. The kid has immense talent. And actually, I think, talking about Mike Tyson and breaking Mike Tyson's record, I believe we've got a caller come in to wants to say something about Mike Tyson. This is going to be interesting to see how this call goes, actually. Who have we got?
Who have we got on the line on talkSPORT from Liverpool? Boxing fan. Please join us on the show live. Spencer Oliver and me, Paul Dempsey. Hello. Are you there?
All right, gents. It's Dan from Liverpool.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for coming on the show.
Right, okay, so first of all, how can you possibly say Mike Tyson was overrated as a boxer? I mean, the guy, heavyweight boxing was like on the map and everything, but he reinvented it. He got more people involved ever, and he destroyed people left, right and centre. Now, you talk about when he got beat against...
Buster Douglas.
Buster Douglas, first time.
Buster Douglas, yeah. Which he didn't even train for. Okay, like in terms of a temperament, like he told he had like this sort of god complex. But Mike Tyson, I think, believe in his prime, and Ali in his prime, Mike Tyson would have battered Ali. No question about it. No question about it at all. He used to fight like a flyweight in terms of his speed, his power, and everything else.
So, Dan, I think, Dan, just to interrupt you there, mate. I sort of half go what you're saying there. I think that Mike Tyson was a phenomenon in his early days, and I think he could have matched any heavyweight of any era. I definitely believe that when he was 20 to 23, 24, I think he was right up there, and I still think he is, and I think that's why, for me, he does fit in that sort of top 10 greatest of all time. But I think that the comment about Muhammad Ali, I don't think we can put him in that conversation. I think Muhammad Ali was proven, mate.
Well, fair enough. But what I will say is Mike Tyson so you don't think he would have beaten Ali then? No.
No, I don't think he would have beat Muhammad Ali. No, definitely not. Muhammad Ali was cut from a different cloth, mate. I mean, you see, like, the fights that he had with, Joe Frazier, using that as an example. Joe Frazier was a monster himself, and the way that Ali went over and the way that he got himself back up, the beating that he took, when you're talking about, but different sizes, different eras. What about George Foreman? He was a giant, mate, and the beating that he took from Foreman for 7 rounds was quite incredible. The guy had a jaw. That's why he's the greatest of all time. He was not just a beautiful boxer and amazing outside the ring. What he was inside the ring was quite phenomenal as well.
Yeah, okay. I mean, okay, George, God bless him. Like, I met him in Liverpool years ago. Like, bizarrely, he was in Liverpool for some reason. I don't know why. But I think when you talk about like Ali, he got in people's heads. Whereas Mike Tyson, I think, where he got in people's heads in terms of like the sort of the psychological side of things. Mike Tyson would have used that to his strength, I think, and reversed it where he got like Joe Frazier and all the rest of it, calling him all these derogatory names and all the rest of it. But honestly, I had this. My mate's a boxing trainer, and we had this debate all the time. And he says Ali's the best, but I think when push comes to shove, for me anyway, personally, and obviously people have their own opinions, and I get it, but I think Tyson in his prime, and if he was getting wound up the way he did, the way Ali did with people getting his head, I just think there's no contest at all. Tyson would have ruined him, I think, personally.
Dan, terrific. Thank you very, very much indeed for putting him in my place.
Great chatting to you, Dan.
I really appreciate you coming on the show, and please rejoin us again. Any of your friends with any opinions, you all know a lot more than I do anyway. I'm just a fall guy in all this, but thank you very much for your opinion here on talkSPORT. Spencer's just lined up all these PD personals now. I've really started something here, haven't I?
You really have.
And so much more to come with other star names in boxing, and of course, key to everything tonight here on the show here on talkSPORT, as we remember George Foreman. on talkSPORT. Spencer Oliver has allowed me to sit alongside him in the studio tonight. I'm so grateful for the invite. My name is Paul Dempsey. I don't know much about boxing, but I love it.
You certainly do, my friend.
By the way, we didn't get very far into your heavyweight top 10, the current world top 10. Should we continue with that?
Yeah, let's continue with that. We've done Moses Atuma, who slipped in at number 10 for me there. And, I mean, let's move up a little. Talk to me about Fabio Wardley. Now, I put him in at number 7. Fabio Wardley...
With respect, you put him in at number 9, and he should be at number 7, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that... Oh, sorry, you're right. He did go in 9. I put Zhang Zhang. Yeah, sorry. Yes.
I think he's a huge talent. And do you know why, Spencer? It's nothing technical about him. It's nothing athletic about him, but he says to me, he screams at me, warrior.
He's tough.
He screams at me, I really want this.
He's tough. Do you know, he's one of those rare breed of fighters, right, that enjoys the pain. He's like one of those rare breed that, like, he can take himself to a place that not many people can go to.
Do you think he will, now that he's seeing what it's really, how hard it is, really, do you think he's still... mentally where he was 18 months ago when he first started on this journey? You know much better than me.
Yeah,
you know what to look for. Do you think he's still intact mentally in that way?
I think that he's in a much better place than he even was when he first started. You know, if you look at his background, Fabio Wardley, he come from a white-collar background. He didn't have any amateur experience. He's learnt on the job, you know, the way that he has, but he's very heavy-handed. He loves having a fight. He can take a good shot, and he can get down in the trenches. He's, like I say, he's one of those rare breed that is tough. You know, we talk, and I'm going to refer back to George Foreman and Ron Lyle again here, and you look at that fight, that 5-round fight, and guys, please, if you've not seen it, go on YouTube, have a look at that. One of the greatest fights that you'll ever see. It was dramatic. It was just, it had absolutely everything into it. The reason I've gone back to that fight talking about Fabio Wardley is them two guys showed so much character in that. Fabio Wardley is sort of cut from that cloth, whereas he is prepared to go where not many people are prepared to.
And that's
that
what
makes
the game's
difference.
really all about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we can dress it up with window dressing and... trash talk and all that, but it's the truth business, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Absolutely, and you know, so that's where I'm at with Fabio Wardley, and I think that's why.
And I'm going to forgive me. I jump right in because there is somebody else from the 70s that needs a mention urgently in this conversation tonight, and that is Ken Norton.
Oh, absolutely. That was George Foreman. You know, George Foreman knocked Ken Norton out, who was a tough guy. Two rounds. Absolutely.
And you know what else? He stole something from him. That's cross-armed style of defence, which became such a George trademark, Foreman Mark II.
Yeah.
He saw Ken Norton doing it first.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant. Like so many smart composers, comedians, etc. They take little bits from people along the journey and say, I could use that.
Absolutely.
That's where he got that
cross-arm, yeah. And that remains today. But let's jump into it. Let's go for the PD personal. My questions again.
I thought I got away from this.
We've not got from it, mate. And while we're on these subjects, that's why I'm throwing them in right now, because I believe that your answers, and I'm just second-guessing this, but I believe your answers are going to relate to the conversation that we're sort of having now. That's why I'm jumping in and throwing these questions. I just think it's a little bit of fun. Greatest fight that you have ever covered. Now, Paul Dempsey, I know that you've covered boxing for over 30 years and you've been at some memorable fights. I'm really intrigued to know, what is your greatest fight?
It's one of the questions I do get asked the most. And actually, the answer is very simple, because in my head, it is elevated above all the other great fights I've been so lucky to witness. And the answer to the question is the first Mike Tyson-Evander Holyfield fight at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And every time I talk about it, I'm feeling it now.
Right.
On the back of my neck.
Yeah.
The emotion around it was totally indescribable. Another reason it's memorable to me, the great Reg Guttridge, ITV commentator, actually commentated for Sky on that night. And I was with Reg at ringside. And when we came off the air, I said to Reg, who I loved dearly as a man, Reg, everything you've seen in this... And he'd been in boxing 50 years, and he was a hander-upper as a kid, not very far from where we are in London, right now in the East End of London, right? And he looked over the top of his glasses at me and he said, if I were you, young man, I'd quit tonight, because you're never going to see anything like that again in your life.
This was the ear-biting incident, right?
No, that was the second fight.
That was the second fight.
This was when Holyfield stopped him in the 11th round.
Yeah, incredible. Against all the odds.
Oh, the fear, Spencer, was that Holyfield might die in the ring.
Yeah.
Do you remember he'd had a lot of medical questions? There's a brilliant documentary, Chasing Tyson, and again, as you rightly said about some of the George Foreman fights, like against Lyle, watch it. Everybody, watch Chasing Tyson.
Yeah.
Because it tells the drama in America of how this fight became so huge. And to this day, another of my memories of it is the next day. To me, it's the last time in America that boxing was front page news. And one of the newspapers had a headline. I don't know what the name of the type is in newspaper land, but the type was that big, and all it said across the front page was Holyfield.
Wow.
That's all it said.
Brilliant. Well, listen, while we're on Evander Holyfield, and you're talking about boxing and looking at going back on old fights, Evander Holyfield versus George Foreman. Have a look at that one. Well, that was incredible as well. George Foreman lost that fight, but what a fight it was.
The emotion was absolutely unbelievable. But to round out the conversation, I think people like Michael Buffer also say that elevated the experience of doing what we do in a very special way. Unbelievable privilege to be at it.
Yeah.
But all week, with all the bad people around Mike Tyson, the bling, there were guns, there was drama, there were criminals everywhere, high-profile people who shouldn't have been.
Doesn't sound like boxing.
And, you know, as the week went on, outside the MGM Grand, there was this little group of old ladies, Bible class people from Georgia, and I honestly start to tear up when I think about this. And they were there very politely to support Evander Holyfield against the baddest man in the world. And on the night of the fight, he's under such pressure for the first 3 or 4 rounds, and in the mid-rounds, the right hand to the middle of Tyson's chest, he just threw it, and Tyson stopped in his tracks. And in the crowd, everybody went, "That's not in the script here tonight." And then 2 rounds later, I started to hear these old ladies.
No way.
Spencer, from 50 rows back, because it had gone so quiet. Holyfield. Very politely, Holyfield. And then people started going, yeah, they're right. And so the chant was picked up all around the venue. And the place literally was bouncing. And people were going, Holyfield, in a kind of defiant way. It was absolutely insane.
Brilliant. Love it. Love it.
I'm crying now. It was unbelievable.
Well done. Brilliant. Great stuff.
Where are we going now?
Where are we going now? I think we're going to be going to the break soon, aren't we?
I need to dry my eyes. Caroline Dubois will be joining us here. What a great show this Spencer Oliver show is, by the way. Thank you for having me on it,
You're
Spencer.
doing a great job, Paul. You really are.
This is Fight Night here on talkSPORT. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us here on this Saturday night as we talk about boxing. In particular, we remember one of the all-time greats, George Foreman, but we've got some real superstar guests alongside Spencer tonight. And before we introduce our next guest, here's something just a little bit special.
Dubois, and down goes Kamara.
It's really good work to the body from Caroline Dubois.
Oh, beautiful shot there from Dubois. Left hand, right hook.
Really dominant this from Caroline Dubois. She's dictated.
Strong left hand there from Dubois. Just sends Shin staggering back.
Oh, what a shot.
Good left hand there from Dubois, and down goes Rodriguez.
Yes, everybody, it's one of the fastest rising stars in women's boxing, the one and only Caroline Dubois. We welcome you to the show, and here is the opening few bars of Sweet Caroline, sung by Spencer Oliver.
Well, I don't know, but I don't think...
He wrote that, Caroline. I want you to know he wrote that as well.
I don't think our viewers, our listeners would actually enjoy that, if I'm totally honest. But Caroline, do you know what I loved about this? Caroline Dubois is sitting opposite us right now, and she's sitting there, and we've played the opening to that clip there that we've just gone out, and she's sitting there, and I'm looking, I'm going, yeah, that's you. He's going, is that me? It's me. Yeah, brilliant. Caroline, how are you anyway?
I'm very well, very happy to be here. So thank you guys for inviting me down again.
Our privilege, of course.
Yeah. Listen, let's talk about your last fight, the Royal Albert Hall. Now, we were just having that conversation, weren't we, before on there? It's where my last fight was, actually, but it didn't go according to plan, my last fight. Yeah, I don't actually remember being there. I woke up 2 weeks later and had to rebuild my life, but that's another story. So, you being back at the Royal Albert Hall, boxing being back at the Royal Albert Hall, how good was that? I mean, it's an amazing venue, right?
Yeah, I mean, all leading up to the fight, all I've been hearing is how amazing the venue is. It's people are saying it's their best, their favourite. So I've got, high expectations, and to be honest, they were all smashed. I went there and it was a beautiful venue. It was a beautiful setup, and the atmosphere was really, really nice. And, a lot of people showed up, and it was just an amazing night, and I'm glad that women's boxing was there, and it's
all women's
exactly
card.
All women's card first for that. And there's not many shows that get to happen at the Royal Albert Hall, so to be able to get the slot, to get the opportunity was a nice
I don't know whether they're actually unconnected events, and I was actually there covering that infamous night when we actually thought we'd lost Spencer, to be serious for a moment, against Evakov. Painful memories in many ways, but most of all for Spencer, obviously. But in terms of the years between big fights like Spencer's at the Royal Albert Hall and the last few years, I don't know how connected your incident was to it, but for many years there was a real problem getting boxing on in the venue. I think from memory there was an issue with the council as well in terms of the staging of boxing and the license.
I think it was because of obviously what had happened in the fight with myself and the extent of the injury that I received. I think they took boxing away from there for many, many, many years. I think they've only had 3, maybe 4 shows, and that was like 26 years ago now.
Yeah.
They've only had 3 or 4.
We did one in about 2017 or 18.
That's right.
On
they didn't have boxing back there for many, many years, but I'm so pleased that it's returned, because you're right, Caroline, that when you go in that venue and the acoustics that are in there, the sound, the way that it is, it's sort of built for boxing, really. So it's so good that actually boxing is back there. And how good was it? It was an all-women's card. I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because we go back to, what was it, October 2022, when we had it at the O2, the first all-women's boxing card that sold out there, and that was a historic moment for women's boxing and how it's evolved and how it's moved on. And then to do it again at the Royal Albert Hall, I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know that if you women would be able to fill the arena the way you did, but it was absolutely packed there. It just shows the impact that women are having on boxing now and the fans that you've actually got.
No, exactly. It's always a catch-up moment when you go to events like that and people turn up and they show the support. It's it really makes you humble and humbles you and makes you appreciate. Boxing is nothing if there's no people. We don't just step into the ring and just fight. We fight to entertain the fans, and we have the opportunity to headline or be in these big shows because of the fans and all the fans that showed up. It was an amazing night, and I'm so thankful.
There may not be the gulf of women's boxers around right now, but the ones that are at the top are very, very elite. Now, I'm going to mention Katie Taylor, because she's the pioneer of women's boxing, and what she's done for it is quite incredible. And over the other side of the pond, Amanda Serrano has done exactly the same. And what she's done, they're looking like they're going to have a trilogy now. But I know you're breathing down their neck. I know you're chasing them. You need other dance partners, and they are the girls to actually be in the ring with, aren't they? So is that a fight that you'd be looking at, maybe the winner of that? Because you're fast on their heels now.
100%. Listen, I feel like when you're at the top, everybody's gunning for you. You know, you have a massive sign at the back of your head, and everybody can see it, and everybody's gunning for you. And you know, I think me, myself, and a few other girls, we are the prime prospects. I don't know who else Kate can potentially be fighting, unless she wants to rematch Amanda for all the time. That'll be a great fight, but you know, it doesn't make much sense. So
WBC lightweight title is yours. How important is it for you to maybe build a long reign that people in 20, 30, 40 years will go, Caroline Dubois held that title for 5 or 6 years? Because I can't see Katie coming back down again in weight. So.
No, I want to be undisputed, and then I want to be, I want to move up in weight, and I want to do the same thing there. So at 140, I want to be undisputed there. I want to move up to 147. I don't know how heavy I will get, but we'll see. I think we'll start with 3, and then we'll see where we get. You know, I don't want to be someone who just sits and hangs around. You know, for women, being a world champion isn't necessarily an easy thing to do, but it's a quick thing to gain. If you're good enough, you get the opportunity. So I don't think for me, that won't fulfill me just being a world champion. I want to be the best. I want to signify myself as being the best, and that's only possible by
You've got an amazing backstory as well, so can I get right to it?
Yeah, I think it's time.
Is it actually true that Caroline was Colin?
I feel like I've told this story like so many times now.
You've got to explain this properly, because you wasn't actually Colin that turned into Caroline, but you was known as Colin for obvious reasons. Please explain that.
No, that was back in the day, 9 years old, full Mulan era. When I started boxing at the time, Repton Amateur Boxing Club and a few other boxing clubs like Del Youth and West Ham, they were boys boxing clubs, and on the door they would say Repton Amateur Boys Boxing Club, and they didn't allow females in the gym, and they didn't want it. There was no Olympics for the women, and there was no real potential of where they were going, so they just didn't take interest or didn't see it as a possibility. So when I started, my brother was boxing. I said I wanted to join, and my dad said, if you're gonna do this, you have to go to the best gym. And Repton at the time, and probably still is today, is one of the best gyms. So we went there, and the only way I was able to get into the gym by was saying my name was Colin, and I was Colin for like I don't know, like 4 or 5 months.
Was you sparring the boys then?
I was sparring the boys. I had my first spar against a boy named Oscar. I'm baiting him out now, and I punched his head in. He was crying, and oh yeah, that was a crazy experience, but it was really good.
Did you love it from day one?
100%. It was weird. I walked into the gym, and as soon as I walked in, I was like, how could anyone not want to box? Just the atmosphere, the feeling, the intensity, and just walking in. As soon as I walked in and I smelt the leather, I seen the bags, that's what I wanted to do.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say that the strange thing about this is the smell of a boxing gym that you never forget, never leaves you. Even when I do it now, 26 years later, and I go back to Finchley ABC, where I was boxing, you go back there and you walk in there, and it's that distinctive smell, man, and it's like, in boxing clubs, right, especially amateur boxing clubs, Caroline, you can back me on this one, the gloves are worn, like you can imagine there's hundreds of kids that go in there nightly, like every night there's hundreds of kids, and they're all using the same gloves. So the gloves get put back, they come back, and they're soaked. Well, I can't tell you how bad that smell is from those boxing gloves. That is so bad, but it's so bad, it's good, if that makes sense.
You get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it. Exactly. If you get used to that, you can get used to anything. But what a time, what a legacy for the Dubois family right now, with Daniel doing what he's doing, and looks like, he's going to be reigning there for a long, long time.
We didn't finish our top 10 male heavyweights, actually, but we need to do that later on the show as well.
Absolutely.
Caroline, I'd really like it if you can stay with us for a while. Could you do that?
I'll see.
There's no Saturday night distractions for a professional boxer anyway.
Exactly.
Just ask him. Please stay with us. We're going to hear more from Caroline in a moment here on Fight Night Live on talkSPORT. Briefly to Cardiff, the Cardiff City Stadium. It's Wales against Kazakhstan. Football tonight. Lawrence Mora, over to you, Lawrence.
Yeah, it finished Wales 3, Kazakhstan 1. Craig Bellamy's side off to a winning start in World Cup qualifying, and he remains unbeaten as the Wales manager. They got the perfect start after 9 minutes. Daniel James tucking the ball home through the legs of the Kazakhstan defence and seemingly through the goalkeeper as well. Wales completely dominant until the 32nd minute. Out of nothing, Kazakhstan got a penalty. Taji Bergen's penalty hit Darlow's legs, but as the ball skidded over the goal line, it didn't even reach the net. But it was 1-1 at the break. Bellamy would have demanded a quick response. Captain Ben Davies sorted that out. He headed home, Sorba Thomas's corner within 2 minutes of the restart. Wales dominated after that, but they had to wait until the 90th minute when sub Rabi Matondo tucked away the third, his first ever goal for his country. The squad will now head to third seeds North Macedonia for their next match in Group J on Tuesday. It finished in Cardiff, Wales 3, Kazakhstan 1.
Lawrence, thank you very much indeed. We head into a short break. After that, it will be more from Caroline Dubois, Spencer Oliver and myself, Paul Dempsey, here on Fight Night Live on talkSPORT. Fight Night Live on talkSPORT. Spencer Oliver has been kind enough to share the studio with me, Paul Dempsey, and a very special star has also come in to see us on this Saturday night, the one and only Caroline Dubois, a boxer going to the very, very top. You're already about 8/10 of the way there, I would say, as the current WBC lightweight champion. To go back a little bit, and thank you for sharing the amazing story of how you first got into boxing. Who were your heroes in boxing?
I didn't have a lot of female heroes until I got on, started boxing for a while now. But, you know, I watched all the fights. You know, the Contender Series was always on the weekend. The big Friday Fight Nights was always on. You know, Sugar Ray Leonard, I remember there was a video we used to have, a cassette back in the day, the VHS tapes. And it was Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Duran, and you know, those guys, they were the top. Tommy Hearns, those guys, I really enjoyed watching them. You know, they were the four kings, and they deserved, rightfully so.
And in your family, we all have this picture that actually pretty much everything revolved around boxing.
I think that's a fair picture
for everybody, because you're a big family, aren't you?
Yeah, big family, and boxing was just the focus. It was the center. It was the sun that we all spun around and evolved around. It was the one that, you know, dedicated how we lived and how we trained and what we did. And, you know, I was lucky enough to become a part of that, so, yeah.
Paul, that's not uncommon, by the way, that actually within boxing, when you get that with boxing families and whatnot, I've done it with my brother as well, my dad and my granddad boxing and everything else. You grow up knowing nothing but boxing. It's sort of like, it's there, it's installed from a very young age. You know nothing but that. Like, you know, my early memories of growing up watching Marvin Hagler and the four that you said, and like getting up and listening to Mike Tyson on the radio and everything else, but everything, it's like your life. Boxing doesn't revolve around your life revolves around boxing. Exactly. And I get the sense that happens in the Dubois household.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, boxing was a massive part. I think as I've gotten older, I've realised there's a little bit more to life. But back in the day, you know, that was the only life. That was the life that we lived, and it was the life that was gonna, you know, get me where I wanted to be and give me motivation.
Where do you want to be?
I mean, for me, I just want to be happy. Now I've realised, you know, the important thing in life is to be happy, satisfied, and be constantly busy, you know, work and enjoy what you want to do, and I'm doing something that I'm truly happy about.
Did you ever have, when you were younger and you have these dreams, and I know that you competed in the Olympics and you just missed out on a medal there, and that was obviously the dream for you as a young, and I know that's sore asking or bringing that one up, bringing that one up, because I know that you should have gone on and you should have won that gold medal and things didn't go your way, but that happens in boxing, you know, so that dream was over. But did you ever believe that you was going to go on and get that green and gold belt, that WBC belt? Because I mean, that is every fighter's dream, man, just to have that, and you've achieved that.
No, definitely. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I've always believed that, you know, I was going to the top, and I wanted, when I turned pro, the only ambition, the goal was to be a world champion. If I didn't hit that, I would have been, you know, disappointed. So to get it, it wasn't a surprise to me. It was more like, you know, this is what's meant to happen.
How important for you, we were speaking earlier on the show tonight, Caroline, how important for you is it that boxing is going to be in the Olympics?
Very important. When I started boxing, there was no Olympics for women, so I didn't really have any direction. I was just doing it. I was hoping maybe I'd be like Layla Ali one day, turn pro. But when the Olympics happened in 2012, suddenly, you know, boxing came into focus. There was vision, there was goal, there was dream. And after the Olympics, all I ever focused on, I went to bed dreaming about the Olympics. I woke up dreaming about, on my runs, all I thought about was the Olympics. And to take that away from so many young kids, it would have been a travesty. Boxing has been such a, you know, a hallmark of the Olympics, and to take that would have been a shame.
Can I ask you, at what age did you know you was going to become a boxer? It's an interesting one, this.
I started boxing when I was 9.
Before the Colin days, obviously.
I don't know. Like, but my dad was very focused on Daniel. You know, all he spoke about was Daniel's going to be a world champion,
Yeah, but you must have had this burning thing inside, because I had a similar thing with my older brother, and the focus was always on him. But if anything, that fed me, and that made me become where I wanted to go. So I'm just intrigued to see, you know, how it happened with you.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Me and my sister, we used to play games, and we would create like a boxing kind of game. And like someone would be the coach and someone would be training and all that stuff. And we would just be in the other room just training and practicing and doing shadow boxing and stuff like that. And then one day I was like, Dad, I want to box. And he was like, you can't box. And I was like, yeah, I can. I've been practicing in the room next door. So I don't know. It's just always been a part, you know. As I say, it was always on. Boxing was always on. it just became a part of who I was.
Not the typical upbringing of a young girl that's great. They normally grow up like with Barbie dolls and pushing little prams and wearing their mum's high heels or whatever. And you're building boxing rings. I absolutely love that.
That's what makes you guys and girls different. And speaking of family connections, of course, Shane McGuigan, part of a very famous boxing family, is training you.
Yes.
So if you would bring us up to date, where is Shane with you on the work page at the moment? What have you been working on in the last camp or two? What's the next level for you as a boxer?
I mean, I guess I'll be honest. You know, obviously as a world champion, everything is gonna get harder. The competition is gonna become tougher. You know, the fights are suddenly gonna edge away from being, 60-40 to 50-50 fights. You know, I'll be involved in some big fights in my next few fights, hopefully. You know, I want to challenge Terry Harper next, and then go for undisputed against Beatrice Ferreira, the Olympic silver medalist. So the challenges are steadily but quickly getting harder.
And what happens if the phone rings and somebody maybe from America says, actually, we've got a Katie Taylor fight for you?
Oh, of course I'll be picking that one up. I'll be signing that straight away. But to be honest, I don't think she'll fight me.
Did you see her little eyes light up then when you mentioned that? Did you see that? Did you see that little twinkle in her eye there? That was absolutely brilliant. Listen, you're talking about next fights and you're hoping for Terry Harper. I don't know if that was a little exclusive that you was giving us there, or whether that is something that's on the radar. But do we have a date in mind?
We don't have a date. It's all, obviously she's fighting in Doncaster, I think May time, so we'll see how that fight goes. Hopefully she's able to come out without cuts or any injuries, and we can get it going straight away in the summer. The end of summer, that would be great. That would be great.
Any venues in mind? I mean, you've done the Royal Albert Hall. Where do you go from there? I mean, come on. What's the dream for you, by the way, as in for a venue? Is it a stadium? Is it like where would you most like to fight?
You know the answer.
No, I don't know. You tell her. I'll tell you if I was right or wrong.
I would love to fight the O2, and I don't know if that's going too low or standard, but I remember the all-female show with the Clash of Shields and Savannah Marshall, and obviously they sold out, and it was my first time fighting on there, and it was amazing. Sold out O2 was amazing.
So, as you're such a student of the game, I thought you were going to go Madison Square Garden.
Oh, yeah, I could have gone there, but I want to fight in London. I want to headline in London, England.
You are a standard bearer on this side of the Atlantic for certain. Just to bring it back, if we may, finally in this part, Spencer, to the male heavyweight top 10.
Yes.
And, of course, Daniel, Caroline's brother, features quite high.
He does.
Are you happy with number 2 at the moment?
He's number 2 in my rankings right now, as in the current top heavyweights. Alexander Usyk obviously being 1. Daniel lost that fight last time out in Poland. I was lucky enough to be at ringside then. By the way, guys, I'm going to put it out there now to everyone that's listening to this. It was not, I repeat, not a low blow. All this controversy about whether it was or whether it was. And Caroline will, second me on this one. The waistbands are held very high. It landed on the waistband, admittedly, yes. But where the waistband was placed, that was never down south. It was in the right spot. And Alexander Usyk used his experience to demotivate Daniel at that time. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I think that Daniel goes in there now, as he's the champion. I think he wins a rematch. I really do.
I'm not the champion. I'm only the chairman, and I didn't even choose the role tonight, but we have to pause it at this moment. Will you guarantee that you will come and see us again soon?
Of course.
We've loved having you on the show. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you.
Caroline, thank you.
Caroline, may I say one thing about your boxing ability apart? I can see now why the BBC viewers made her the young personality of the year.
This skill's a superstar in the making.
You have got it all. Thank you very much. You're
Thank
not bad either, Spencer.
Now, listen, Paul, I'll take that. I'll take that.
More in a moment here on talkSPORT.
Cricket balls are red, baseballs are white, American footballs are brown, and tennis balls are yellow. We don't even think about it really, but the story behind the tennis ball is actually quite interesting and even involves Sir David Attenborough. I know. Well, here's the tale. Tennis is widely known to be a French sport. It dates back to the 12th century when people used handmade balls, and it was then called tenez, which is the verb to hold in French. And people used some pretty wacky material to make the balls with: cork, wool, chalk, animal fur, and even human hair. A few centuries on, Germany got dead into the tennis too, but wanted to make a few modifications to the ball to make it a bit more effective. Around this time, an American chemist had just created something called vulcanized rubber. Out of that, people started developing air-filled rubber balls, which were properly bouncy, but either red or grey in colour. These were manufactured in Melton Mowbray. That's right, the home of the pork pie. One problem, the balls kept on breaking on impact with the racket. The call of "new balls please" seemingly coming over every other point. Step forward English lawyer and tennis enthusiast John Moyer Heathcote, who suggested balls be covered in flannel to stop them from degrading. And thus the modern-day tennis ball was born. But these were white or black, so how did they become yellow? Well, in 1967, the controller of BBC Two, one Sir David Attenborough, decided the corporation should show Wimbledon on colour TV. He got his wish, and it was wide into people's homes across the country. The only sticking point: the white balls were nearly impossible to see on the screen. So the International Tennis Federation, sensing an opportunity, started developing a new ball that would be visible even without the need for 4K LED displays. Not that anyone had that in the late 60s. After rigorous testing, they came up with the colour Optic Yellow and decided every ball be coated in that colour from there on in. And there you have it. Tennis balls are yellow, all because Sir David Attenborough wanted to watch Wimbledon from the comfort of his own front room. You could say the ITF aced it.
Even the music's hot on this show.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
This is Spencer Oliver's Saturday Night here on talkSPORT. Welcome everybody, Fight Night Live. I'm Paul Dempsey. Thank you very much for putting up with me alongside the one and only Spencer Oliver. It's a month, Spencer, give or take a day, and that's all until the long-awaited meeting of Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Where else can the hype take us?
Well, listen, I mean, look, the rivalry goes back, doesn't it, over 30 years. The feud goes back over 30 years. You know, they are their father's sons. I think Chris Eubank Jr. has been phenomenal in this build-up. You know, he had that egg-slapping moment, and then we saw him on Piers Morgan. I thought he was brilliant on that occasion. That press conference after the egg-slapping as well, we saw that, and I thought he was brilliant there as well. He's been absolutely sensational, but they are their father's sons. Chris Eubank Jr. is that guy that's very calm, very collective, very educated, and knows what to say when, and Conor Benn is that emotional guy like his father was way back when. And so Chris has been pushing those buttons, and Conor just has to control those emotions. But it's going to be emotions, but it's going to be...
Is the hardest part still to come?
Oh, absolutely.
In that respect?
Absolutely. Of course it is, because Chris knows how to push the buttons, and that's what fighters do. Fights are won and lost before the first bell rings. It's all a mind games. It's all about trying to get him to break his concentration and trying to get him to break his game plan. Tony Sims has to do a great job keeping Conor under control, keeping him cool, but Chris Eubank Jr. is a cool customer, and it's been a fantastic build-up so far. Can't wait for April 26th. It's going to be a sensational fight. Great undercard as well. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, absolutely packed. Are we going to relive the 90s? Will we get a fight, you know, similar to Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn? Who knows? You know, both these guys, they want to win badly. I think that we're going to get something quite special.
Another element to the build-up took place in this very building, actually, earlier this week. Jim White and Simon Jordan together on talkSPORT, and Simon was not shy in giving his opinion on the 1 million, say that again, 1 million bet that Eubank Jr. has now accepted with Eddie Hearn. Have a listen.
Eddie gave it the big one to try and diminish Benn, didn't he? He tried to make Benn look silly by offering him a £1 million bet. And apparently, Eddie doesn't know the governance of his own sport. As a promoter, a licensed promoter, he can't bet. And so, of course, Chris has called him out. And now Eddie, being the master snake oil salesman he is suggesting that it's a conspiracy theory that people want him to take the bet so he can get fined on his licence. Nonsense! He's the one that put the bet up.
Can I throw my 2 pence worth? For the solution here should be they're not allowed to bet.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Why don't they then do it? Change the word and do it for charity, a charity of your choice.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. A donation, right? Okay,
a donation.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't they choose their own charities who they would like that £1 million to go? That's the way.
I think Eubank would go for that. I'm not sure Snake would.
Absolutely brilliant that was, wasn't it? Don Charles, and everybody knows who the other fella in this studio was. We all received, this is a quote, we all received an email from the board recently stating Regulation 30. How many people knew it was Regulation 30?
Come on.
It states that any member, i.e. licence holder, cannot bet, advise anybody else to bet, permit to bet on any event they have any involvement with. That's from Eddie Hearn. Unfortunately, quote continues, I will lose my licence, and that's probably what they want me to do, good line, comment on it and say, yeah, I'll take the bet. Then I get called and fined 100,000. Is that the last we've heard of all of this?
Listen, Don Charles, I think, has come up with the solution, hasn't he? I think that, look, this all started when Eddie Hearn put it on Ben Shalom, knowing that Ben wouldn't accept the bet, and said, come on, £1 million in escrow, me and you, let's do it out of our personal accounts, not the business accounts. Now, Paul, you know through the history of boxing, these have always been... This
Mind
has always
reader,
gone on.
I was about to say.
Absolutely.
It has gone on, and it's gone on in Britain and in the United States.
Absolutely. Fighters challenging each other to put purses, all their purses in, etc., etc. Eddie put it on Ben. Chris Eubanks picked up on it. And like I say, master of the mind games, absolute master of that, and said, listen, Eddie, come on, me and you, don't worry about Ben Shalom. I will give you the £1 million bet. Let's put that money in escrow, and if I beat Conor Benn, I win £1 million. He's put it on him, and then Eddie's gone back to the old book and said, oh, hold on, can't do this.
The book does come in handy sometimes.
The book does come in handy sometimes. The rules and regulations say I'm not allowed to bet, so it might have saved Eddie.
If I can add, I just want to add one other quote from another promoter. When Bob Arum was once cornered in America, Rule 38B, subsection 2, Bob, XXX, you're not allowed. Let me read you Rule 35. You do what the hell you like.
Oh, it's brilliant. But listen, all part of the build-up, and we love it, don't we?
Can we talk about the fight? Who is the favourite?
I think Chris Eubank Jr. has to start the favourite. He's the bigger guy of the two. He's been the more tested of the two. He's boxed at a higher level. Conor Benn has had his troubles outside of the ring with the 2 foul test that put him inactive. I mean, I know he had a couple of low-key fights, but not very active, not as active as he'd like to have been. He was boxing at 147. This is now up at 160. Anyone that will think, well, it's not that much of a jump. Trust me, it is. For boxers, it's a huge jump, And Chris is a guy coming down from 168. He boxed George Groves at 168 in the World Super Series. And, you know, he boxed him at 168. He come back down to 160.
I never really fancied him at super middle, though, did you?
No, I didn't fancy him at super middle. He was too small against George Groves. We could see that. 160 is his weight. It is tough there. They put a rehydration clause of £10 in there, but I don't think that'll make much of a difference, because £10 is quite a lot of fluid to put back into the body. But Chris has to start the favourite because of where he's positioned, but he's getting older now, and Conor Benn is young, and there's a lot on the line for him, and I think it's a coming-of-age fight for Conor. We'll see now just how good he is. Is he good enough? Can he compete at that level? Because Chris has always sort of been there or thereabouts, world level, so it's an interesting fight.
The problem with Eubank's record is this, Spencer, surely. Good win, OK performance, drops a result. Good win, OK performance, drops a result. It's a pattern.
Absolutely, but we're talking levels here, and we're talking weight divisions, and there is weight divisions for a reason. You see the size of Chris Eubank Jr. to Conor Benn on the Piers Morgan show. Anyone that's not seen that is out on YouTube. You go back and have a look at that. Great viewing for an hour that was, but you see the size difference between the two of them, and you think, oh, it's going to be a tough night for Conor. It really is, but, you know, like I say, could be a coming-of-age fight, and that's the intrigue going into this one.
Can I speak on behalf of the fans everywhere? Enough with all the trash talk. Both of these guys desperately need a top-line performance on the night of this fight.
Absolutely. Listen, we need to relive 1990, you know, when we had Chris Senior going in against Nigel Benn. They both put it all on the line. Chris Senior winning that one with 9th round KO. But what a fight it was. Both guys delivered. Both guys really come out victorious. They become icons of the sport for a reason.
Indeed.
And the rematch as well. Let's get that again. Let's relive that. And on that note, we're going back to you, Mr. Dempsey. The PD personal, my questions.
Spencer, you're going off the script again now.
Yeah, no, I've got to do it, mate, because you just looked at me there and I thought, Spence, throw it at him. Let's get it out there, because I want to know, Paul, and I think this might be perfect timing here, your favourite fighter ever. I think this is a good time to throw this question in.
That is the question, the second most oft asked question if I meet somebody on the street. Who is your own favourite fighter? You're right about the time. You did time that well, because we're meant to be in a commercial break. You know what you're doing on this show, don't you?
I do, mate. Yeah. I looked at the time and I thought, I can sneak this in.
As you've got me here, again, pinned against the rope, I said, Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, it's time to deliver a major performance. My most favourite fighter of all time gave everything every time he went into the ring, and he thrilled people all around the world, and he fought everybody, and he lost like he won, giving it everything. He was an all-out attacking fighter. He was brave even in doing weight, because he's a ginormous specimen. How he ever did 10 stone when he started is an absolute mystery.
I know where we are. I've got you.
The one and only, the hitman, Thomas Hearns.
There you go.
And, you know, from a young age, to me, win or lose. And he showed such valour in defeat, Spencer, so often. I mean, the great fights he lost, among the greatest in history. On we go. On we go. And
living legend.
And I'm not the only person who thinks. I met him recently in America. What an absolute charming man. But I looked at him, Spen, and I said to myself, he is a giant.
Yeah.
Even at welterweight, how did you do it?
Incredible.
But even more important, and we're talking about one of the great boxing personalities of all time tonight, George Foreman, the one and only. I corroborated with Aram. Bob Aram gets in this as well. I said, you know, you know them all. Who's your favourite? And he went, as a fella, Tommy Hearns. And I said, well, why is that? Because he said, we used to play poker, and we went all around America playing poker day and night when we were promoting some of those fights, and he was the most fun ever.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it.
So, I love you, Tommy. Here's another commercial break. They're important, by the way. This is Saturday night on talkSPORT from the London studios here. I'm delighted to be invited alongside Spencer Oliver. My name is Paul Dempsey, and we are now into what in boxing terms are called the championship round. It's the last 3 rounds, Spenny. And you've really pummeled me round after round in this fight here tonight. And it's time I threw what little I've got. And trust me, I haven't got a lot to throw. But here it comes.
You go.
You caught me with my guard down, my favourite fighter of all time. How about you?
I'm glad you asked me that, because you've asked me that at the right time. And this isn't set up, by the way. You actually have, because my favourite fighter of all time was the guy that knocked your guy out in what I consider as the greatest fight of all time, the 3-round war. Oh. You'll never see 3 rounds better than it. Marvellous Marvin Hagler. And what a fight that was. You go back to...
Please.
Was it... Hold on, let me get this right. April the 4th, 1985, Caesars Palace.
Well done.
I believe that was, and if I'm right on that, then wow. Yeah, but that's what it was. That was the fight that inspired me into boxing.
Was it really?
That was the fight that ignited me to go, that's who I want to be. I want to be Marvin Hagler. I was that guy. And that's why Marvin Hagler became my favourite fighter of all time. But it's funny, isn't it? Because Caroline Dubois sitting over there said that's what, that's what got her into boxing. When you're talking about Hagler, Leonard, Hearns and Duran, those 4 fighters, anyone that you ask, like you've been talking, anyone that knows a little bit of boxing, history of boxers, those names come up all the time. And I think that, that's for a reason. They were 4 of the greatest fighters, and we were so blessed that they were in the same time, same generation. Incredible.
Do you know what? There was a couple of others knocking on the door that never get a mention.
Yeah, there was.
Benitez is one.
Oh, wow. Wilfred Benitez, the youngest ever world champion at 17 years of age.
And another, John Mugabe, who gets... nobody even mentions anymore.
John the Beast Mugabe. I've got a great story about him, actually. He was trained by Terry Lawless. He used to live over in England. He used to go over Hampstead Heath. We was all running over Hampstead Heath. Yeah. And he used to train at the Wellington in the Highgate. And he used to go over Hampstead Heath. And he was one of the few, he wouldn't get out his bed to go over there. And when he did go over there, it was always too cold. Didn't like being over there. He was one of those guys that, had he trained, he would have been a phenomenon. And he was giving Hagler nightmares for 10 rounds before Hagler caught up with him and showed what a great champion he was and took the beast out. But John the Beast Mugabe, here's one for you, Paul. His first 27 fights, 27 victories, 27 KOs.
Mickey Duff told me that he was the one that got away in terms of becoming a global superstar in boxing.
Yeah.
Mickey thought that highly of him in terms of his ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he was quite phenomenal. Quite phenomenal.
To move off eras slightly a little bit, but every time we look back, we're not looking back at saying everything that was 20 years ago was brilliant. That's not the case. But we are focusing on the show tonight because of George Foreman and because of this pummeling you've given me about these moments from my own past in boxing, Spencer. We are talking about 2 very specific eras, but the point of that is to say, listen, we're judging everything against the best that we have witnessed.
Yeah.
And in both cases, that heavyweight era from the 70s and the 4 Kings, etc.
Yeah.
That's the best of the best. So everybody needs to understand the reasoning behind that.
They're unchallenged. You can't challenge them.
Just ridiculous.
It's unchallenged.
And they fought each other all the time.
That was the difference, Paul. I mean, that's where we're blessed now with Turkey Al-Sheikh and coming back and wanting the best, fighting the best, because that is what the boxing fans are being spoilt with right now, that we are getting those... The modern generation and the modern era is getting what we... That's why that era of back in the 70s and the 80s and even early 90s, but 70s and 80s really, when you had those fighters, all the best fighting the best, it was because the politics weren't involved. They were all there.
We're now in the championship rounds, and it's time I came out and gave you what I think I've got, which is not much, Spencer, but to talk about the modern... kids coming through, okay? Yeah. There's one example. I mentioned Mugabe for another reason just a moment ago, because we're looking at young Benn Whittaker. People in the amateur system in Britain have told me in the last 5 years, different level of talent, even to the other very good amateurs coming through. But Benn is now facing into this rematch with Liam Cameron, and there's a new trainer involved, and Andy Lee, to me, I rate him so highly, but Andy Lee is great with a kid who's got a broken wing.
Absolutely. No,
so is this going to work? Is this going to be the difference-making element for Benn Whittaker?
The million-dollar question, because listen, I mean, we've got that live and exclusive on talkSPORT, actually, April the 20th, the rematch, Benn Whittaker versus Liam Cameron. And this is a situation that we get now. Like you say, Benn Whittaker has been highly talked about as the greatest prospect that we've had for a long time. Comparisons to a young Nazim Hamid when he was coming through, saying this kid is the next kid to fly the flag for British boxing.
Exactly. If I may say, I don't think there's been a public hype, but within the industry of boxing, so many people I'm listening to over the last 2 years going, are you sure? Are you sure about this?
Yeah.
Everybody seemed to have this opinion that he was a totally outstanding talent. But when in Riyadh on the big night against Cameron, given the opportunity in this amazing era by Turki Al-Sheikh, did he bottle it for you?
Well, listen, only he knows that. Only Benn Whittaker knows that. We're all going to have an opinion on it, and you're all going to look at it, and it was a bad fall. We was there at ringside. He went over, Liam Cameron, but this is what the problem that he's got here, or this is the reasoning why everyone's saying, yeah, he did bottle it, was because... at the point of that fight ending the way that it ended, the tide had turned massively. I think Liam Cameron was coming into his own. He was getting momentum, and it was not looking good for Benn Whittaker. He was getting dragged into a dogfight, and that's not his style.
Do you think it should have been a draw?
I think that the fight should have been ruled a draw or a no contest, because they both went over the ropes the way they went over the ropes, and it was one of those ones you go, it was a heavy fall for both of them. Cameron got back in the ring. Benn Whittaker, and only Benn Whittaker knows this, only he knows, and this is what he's got going into this rematch, by the way, because only he knows, and if he was legitimately injured, then fair play, he can wipe the slate clean and get on with the rematch and go and right the wrongs of that last contest and put all the doubters to bed.
One of the things I learned from you guys many years ago when I first started doing this is there's always a tell somewhere in the early career of a kid, and normally it's not necessarily even a flaw, but it's a character trait, and under the pressure it will show itself again and again and again. And if I may go back to Dan from Liverpool talking about Mike Tyson, that's what we saw with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with other fighters along the way, and that's my worry. So I don't know, even though he's got, to me, a magic touch in some ways, Andy Lee, is he walking into something he doesn't know, or has he looked at Whittaker and gone, I can fix that?
Well, listen, if Whittaker, like I say, and I'll keep saying it, like only he knows, but if Whittaker was legitimately injured, then fine, he's going to go in there and he's going to try and right those wrongs. But if he wasn't, and it was a way out, he's got those demons to deal with as well. And Andy Lee is a great trainer and works on the psychological side of things and everything else. But if that chinks in the armour, we've got big problems. We find that out on April the 20th. That's the fascination about this fight.
Not many weeks after that fight, I was in Liverpool, and it was on a TNT show, and Nicky Ball was in against Ronnie Rios, who's a very capable operator.
Yep.
And Ball was absolutely in his ear. And you know what I think about Nicky Ball.
Yep.
I think he is the British
sensational
talent, number one.
Sensational.
And I've said it from the very start.
Yep.
Rios fought a great fight, probably the best fight of his whole career. And Ball was really on it, and he knocked Rios, not over the rope, out onto the floor.
Yep.
It was like Ben McClellan again. Do you know what Rios did to get back in to beat the count? He rolled like a kid in a gymnastics class under the rope and just made... That's the difference. That was somebody wanting to give it all.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to get all those answers April the 20th, Easter Sunday, live and exclusive on talkSPORT. The Cameron Whittaker rematch is intriguing, man.
It is an intriguing fight, but I really hope that Whittaker is going to listen to Andy Lee. To take it back briefly, if I may, to John Mugabe, and I said what Mickey Duff thought about him as a talent. In the end, Mickey said about Mugabe, he will not listen to me. I cannot make him listen. Sometimes there are fighters like that. One night, Duff got the witch doctor who used to walk him into the ring. He said to the witch doctor, I can't... He's not listening to me. You have a go in the corner between the rounds. And that didn't work.
Yeah, well, listen, if anyone can do it...
Hope I'm wrong about Whittaker.
If anyone can do it, Andy Lee can do it, because I've got the utmost respect for Andy Lee. He's a great, great trainer, and he understands the game inside out. Former world champion, been there, seen it, done it, and he knows how to change a fighter's mindset. But only Benn Whittaker can do this. Could he defeat himself by not listening? Because he's going to have to listen if he wants to get victory.
Spencer Oliver and Fight Night Live on talkSPORT. 2 rounds to go. So welcome back, everybody. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. Spencer Oliver, one more time, thank you so very, very much indeed for having me on your show, and really
thank you for being here, Mr. Dempsey.
Giving me a going over at times, but anyway, I've loved it so far.
We've sort of had a little bit of back and forth, haven't we? And I've got one more PD personal that I'm going to throw at you. I think that I'm going to do that one because Michaela Mayer is just about to join us.
Okay,
actually,
she's far more important than me. Let's speak to Michaela Mayer. Okay,
let's do that. Let's get Michaela on. Hey, Michaela, how are you?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Michaela, how's things?
It's good. I'm literally fresh out of the ring from my last sparring session, so sorry.
All right, so you finished the sparring now, yeah?
Yep. The final day is done, so I'm ready for fight week.
Well, Michaela, we've got the rematch. Sandy Ryan, the last one that you had was an absolute barnstormer, to be fair. Both of you girls left it all in the ring. It was a sensational fight. There was controversy surrounding it as well. You know, going into the Sandy getting covered in paint, etc. Whether the fight was going to happen, whether it wasn't going to happen. But we get the rematch. I mean, the first one was sensational. What are we expecting from this one?
I think that, with our styles, we're both very aggressive fighters. There's never really a dull moment in our fight. And we have 10 rounds that we've already been in the ring with each other for. So the surprise element is sort of out the window. And we're both going to have, I think, a little bit more confidence. And it's going to be probably 10 times more exciting, but I plan to be 10 times smarter than I was. I've learned a lot from that fight. I've gotten better since then, and I give myself the adjustment factor. I feel like I'm going to be the one to adjust a little bit quicker and better than Sandy.
And that's the difference, isn't it? Going into this one, it's all about the person that can adapt the most. You both know each other very well now. You've done those, like you say, those 10 rounds together, and it was a grueling fight, tough fight in many ways. But now the key is, and I think this is the difference between being the champion and the challenger, is the one that can adapt and make those slight adjustments.
Yeah, 100%. I think this fight will show who has the better IQ, the ring IQ, and who's the smarter boxer. Because again, we both know each other now. We know what worked, we know what didn't work, what we could have done better. And so it's going to be who goes in there and makes the best adjustment.
So I want to, may I please jump in?
Yes, please,
Forgive me. I know this is Spencer Oliver's show. Michaela, thank you very, very much indeed for being on the show. And two things. Number one, you guys are something. You've got a different level, some of you people. Did you know that we've been speaking about the return of boxing in the Olympics, and there you've got it all across your shoulder?
Yep, there we go.
That is just frightening. More importantly, maybe for some people not familiar with the circumstances, and if you'll forgive me, I have not heard your version of what happened before the first meeting. Now, on the show tonight, we're talking about rivalries boiling over, in particular this upcoming fight over here between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. There are some things that are way beyond acceptable and which bring boxing into disrepute. But honestly, what happened to you is something that I can hardly think of a single example of anything worse than that. How are you looking back on it all now?
What happened to me?
No, what happened to Sandy with the paint throwing? She's saying, yeah, sorry. Yeah, what happened with Sandy? I mean, what happened to Sandy?
Everybody. It impacted everybody, didn't it, around the whole event?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was made a way bigger deal than what it was. Like, do I think it was messed up, and do I wish it didn't happen? Yeah, of course. Like, I wouldn't want anything to sabotage that night for me. I'd worked really hard to get back in that position. But I mean, it was a little bit of paint on the leg. Come on. Okay, we saw the footage. She literally walked up almost kindly to her and just splashed a little paint on her leg. I really think that it escalated so much because of the way her team responded. They got her all worked up, they stripped her naked, made her take a photo shoot, and then, screamed at her in the backstage to pull out of the fight. So, that's what gets to your head.
And were you aware, you must have been aware of it all?
Aware of what?
The whole process unfolding on the day. And it wasn't even on the day, it was, 2 hours before, Spencer, is that right?
Well, yeah, it was before it was leaving to go to the venue, I believe. But was it a big thing out there at the time, Michaela? Like, as in, when news broke about it, the fight was on, then the fight was off, and was she going to fight, was she not going to fight?
All this disruption, how did you cope with all that?
I was waiting for my turn to get down to my car. Like, she was down there waiting for her car first. They didn't want us to run into each other. So I was waiting by the elevator to walk out to my car. I didn't even realize that I was the one getting blamed for this whole thing until I got to the arena. And, like, ESPN is in my face, and Sandy is saying that it was Team Mayer that threw the paint on her. So I understand it was easier for her to point the blame at me, but that's not the case. So it is what it is. It doesn't affect me much.
Does it? Yeah, exactly. Does it help, or does it hinder in the build-up in any way?
No, if anything, it helped the build-up, right? Like, now people are really excited for the rematch. You know, if she thinks that was a huge factor and it threw her off her game plan, well, guess what? Now she got a second chance. So I kindly gave her the rematch, and she can prove me wrong.
I mean, Michaela, you've had a fantastic career. You really have. You've gone through the weights and you've won world titles. I mean, where are we at in your career right now? I know that you don't think past this fight, and Sandy Ryan is a huge fight for you going into this rematch. But, I mean, where is it beyond that? What are your dreams? What are your aspirations beyond this fight you come through and you're victorious?
To be honest, I feel like a new version of Michaela. Like, being up at 147 and finally not cutting weight anymore and letting my body fill out. And my injuries went away. I feel strong finally for once, you know. Training's more fun, and I feel like I extended my career. I definitely elongated my career by going up in weight and stop cutting my body down so much. So I think I can go. I mean, I feel like I'm getting better and better. I still have a lot to give, so we'll see.
How did you ever make super featherweight, which is 9 stone 4? If you know Michaela and you see Michaela, you go, how did that girl ever make that? I mean, I go back to October 2022 with that historic night at the O2, you boxing Alicia Baumgardner, and you, in that fight, it was controversial in many ways. A lot of people felt that you won that fight, but I remember looking at you thinking, how did you ever do that? And then you jump up in weight, up to welterweight, and you look more revived than you ever did down at super feather. Just explain to me how you made that weight.
Honestly, it was just, I was a very conditioned fighter, but I obviously didn't have that strength, and it was just a whole camp of like cutting muscle and dieting down on a calorie deficit. And so all that hard work I was putting in, I really wasn't reaping the benefits, you know, and it was taking a toll on my body. In hindsight, I probably should have moved up after like Hamadouche, you know, but and slowly but surely crept my way up, you know. But by the time I did move up, my body said nope, and I jumped straight up to 147, no problem. And now I'm finally able. I've had time to sort of settle into that weight and put on that muscle, because it does take time, you know.
Yeah, Michaela, listen, we've dedicated this show, you know, to the loss of George Foreman, the sad news of George Foreman and the loss to him, and the miss he is to boxing. And we've been going through some memorable times. Myself, Paul, we've been sharing those moments. Have you got any memories of George Foreman and any personal experiences with him?
A little before my time, but I did get the opportunity to go to his movie premiere, The Big George Foreman.
Brilliant.
In Los Angeles in 2023. So that was pretty cool. You know, at least the story is documented. It'll live on. Yeah, definitely a fan.
Listen, we love to put fighters on the spot on this show like nothing else. What's going to happen in your fight?
You're going to see a different version of myself. You know, I really have been working hard. I know I'm 10 times better than I was that fight a few months ago, and I just want to go in there and make it clear. You know, whatever happens, I'm going to win. I'm going to get my hand raised, and I want to put the pressure on. I want to just overwhelm her with my combinations, my newfound strength that I feel, and just make it obvious, just kick her ass.
Well,
awesome.
Michaela, one thing we can guarantee is we're going to have a sensational fight, because you are always in brilliant fights. You really are one of those girls that puts it all on the line and leaves it in the ring. You're never in a dull fight, and we can't wait. Good luck for the fight.
Guys.
Thank you. Good luck in the final little run-up to the fight itself. Thank you very much, Michaela, and hopefully there'll be no more antics from anybody.
Absolutely. Listen, Paul Dempsey, before we go, mate, I've got to do this. The PD personal, my questions. I'm continuing, mate. I'm going.
As the bell rings.
I've got to continue this. I think that everyone's loved the theme through there, and we made this up randomly, by the way. We didn't know we was going to do this, but I thought, no.
No, you write this show for hours before you come on there.
I'm going to throw Dempo under the bus here. He's done it to me for years. It's my turn to get him back. This is number 5, and this is the final one from me, and it's the greatest fight that you have ever seen. Please tell me.
Wow. I know the answer.
Share it with us.
You gave out a great shout. We've been talking about all those unforgettable heavyweight fights, but my greatest fight of all time is the first fight between Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran.
Wow.
And that was because I looked at it again quite recently, Spencer, and I said to myself, these are two of the greatest pound-for-pound boxers of all time, and they're both fighting at their absolute peak on the same night. Move for move, shot for shot, the intensity of it was off the chart. And like all the really great fights, I always think that we have to assess the backstory. So when Foreman meets Ali, so much has been achieved by both men coming to that night. It was the same when Leonard fought Hearns the first time. It was so much has been achieved by the two guys, and it was the same at that moment with Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, because I think most people believed at that time, would this be right or not, that Roberto Duran was the greatest lightweight in history?
Yeah, I believe so. And
he's in the three, isn't he?
I think
without a problem.
I think a lot of people still believe that today. Yeah. Roberto Duran was
so that was his backstory. And Ray Leonard, again, to tie it up on the Spencer Oliver show, how he writes all this stuff. You know, the Olympic superstar, the golden boy of his era, the perfect record, the unbeatable welterweight, and he puts it all on the line in that fight. And Duran is there. Duran is ahead of him in every department. That's what makes it such a great fight.
I think that it's the
tiniest margin.
I think it's the for that fight, for me, when you look at that, it's the boxing IQ of both of the guys. When you're talking about
perfection.
You're talking about elite, and you go, if that's what you like, and you know you're a purist and you're loving that stuff, and you see both guys going in there and it had everything in that fight. I totally agree with you. Like if you know you're boxing, you're looking at that and you go, that was one of the greatest fights that you'll ever see for sure. Do you know what mine is?
You're sticking though. Are you sticking with?
I think
your first choice.
Well, I think that Hagler Leonard was always good. I'm sorry, Hagler versus Tommy Hearns was always a great one. But do you know one that comes to mind now? And you know, I've got to mention it. It's Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward won. If you want to see a fight, guys, go and watch that on YouTube. Arturo Gatti versus Mickey Ward won. They had a trilogy actually, but the first one was
I covered all
insane.
Of them. No, you're right. They were all pretty insane. But what made it more insane than anything else after that incredible fight, all out, was that on the Monday morning, the phone rang, and it was the President of the United States. And he said to both men, I want you in my office tonight for dinner.
Oh, absolutely. And they deserved it. They absolutely deserved it. What a fight. Make sure you guys go and watch that. Arturo Gatti versus Mickey Ward.
It's a shout-out, actually, to just close this part, to Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Enough of all the real trash talk. Guys, on the night, fight great. Show us what you've got. That is what you both need.
Yeah, please. Your father's sons. Give us what your dads give us all those years ago.
Indeed. The bell for the 12th and last round for Spencer Oliver here on talkSPORT comes next. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're into the last round here on talkSPORT. Fight Night Live with myself, Paul Dempsey, and Spencer Oliver. Of course, we started this evening with our own attempt to pay an appropriate tribute to George Foreman. Not easy to do, given the immensity of his contribution. The one and only George Foreman has passed away, and while we've been on the air, I'm very, very sad to have to say to everybody, after all the laughs we've had tonight, a really downbeat note. We have been told that another great friend of both of us, Spencer and myself, has passed away. Colin Hart has left us at the age of 89. Colin was the lead boxing writer on The Sun and, of course, a brilliant Fleet Street reporter. Really good friend of myself, somebody I learned so much from. And again, I feel like the tears aren't far away at this moment, Spencer, to be honest.
Yeah, real sad time that with Colin. Covered my whole career, actually. He was the guy... You know, when I was boxing, he was the main man, the main journalist. I think that he was actually one of the only British press to cover Ali and Foreman, actually, that at that time, going over there. But I remember him covering my career, and it was always when you was a young fighter looking up, if Colin Hart knew your name, you knew you was doing something right. That was how important he was in the world of journalism, and that's terrible news, man.
I'm sorry to have to break that here on talkSPORT. The one and only, here he is.
You knew a lot about the sport because your dad introduced you to it, and you come from the East End of London, which, of course, for British boxing is the spiritual home, isn't it, of boxing?
Yeah. Instead of telling me about fairy tales, I used to sit on his knee and he'd talk about Ted Kid Lewis and Jack Kidberg and all the great fighters from the East End of London, and we were steeped in it. You know, when Ted Kid Lewis came back from America in 1915, having won the world welterweight title, he drove through the East End in an open car, chucking pennies to the kids who were running after it. And my father, who was 9, was one of the kids scrambling for the pennies. So that's where I get my love of boxing.
Oh, very, very sad indeed. I learned so much from Colin, if I may put it like that, about boxing and about life. He was that kind of a man. My own little story a moment ago, Spenny, about my favourite fight of all time. I didn't tell you, and it's quite uncanny that we've been told of Colin's passing. After I'd watched Leonard Duran again very recently, I actually called Colin.
Wow.
And I said, Colin, unless my eyes deceive me, this is one of the great fights in the history of boxing, and it's probably the greatest fight I've ever seen. And he said, well, I'm glad I taught you something after all these years. It's the greatest fight I ever covered. And he put the phone down. That was classic Colin.
That sounds so much like Colin. I grew very fond of him as well. You know, when I had my injury, you know, many years ago now, like, Colin played a big part in that. He come up to the hospital and he was because he was sort of like inspirational to me, like knowing Colin Hart the way that we did, and become fond friends after that. And, you know, we covered a lot of fights with him, and we just done a show, actually. Can you believe this, Paul? We've done a show, myself and Gareth A. Davis, called My Life in Boxing, that's just going out on talkSPORT TV now, and I think that it hasn't even aired yet. We've done it like 3 weeks ago. Colin come into the studio, and he was giving us his stories about covering, you know, Ali and Foreman and going back in the day, and he's got so many great stories, and he's such a great guy to be around, so warm and loving, and I'm sort of speechless, really. I'm lost for words, because that's just shocked us, because we just that news has just broken. I'm sort of unprepared for it, if I'm totally honest. I'm totally unprepared, because I'm in total shock.
Same, but Colin would understand. You know, the show goes on. He would have always said that, Spencer. We started tonight by talking about the immortal George Foreman. Some other brilliant tributes before we close up this edition of Fight Night Live. Mike Tyson himself. Condolences to George Foreman's family. His contribution to boxing and beyond will never be forgotten. Michael Buffer. I am totally heartbroken with news of my dear friend of more than 35 years, George Foreman, passing away. The number of the years is so interesting, isn't it? Because Buffer actually knew Foreman Mark II.
It's incredible.
Buffer was only a kid first time.
It's incredible.
Around.
You can't.
So he would have known him as the new 45-year-old champion.
It's unbelievable, isn't
and
it?
as the HBO guy
it's
at ringside.
Absolutely unbelievable.
He says, I collect my thoughts and have more to say, Michael Buffer, about a man I and so many others all around the world loved and respected. From Tony Bellew, well done, Tony, for getting in touch. RIB to one of the greatest human beings ever to put on boxing gloves. That sums up my view of George Foreman. Those 5 or 6 words from Tony Bellew. Greatest human beings ever to pull off. He was so much more than just a great boxer.
Absolutely.
I agree completely with that.
Totally agree with that. You know, the fearsome guy that he was in the ring, and how intimidating he was in the ring when you met him in person. Like I say, I met him up in 2005 up in the Midland Hotel, and he was, you know, he was obviously a huge figure, and he sat down and you chatted with him, and you actually recognised that he was just a warm, loving teddy bear. He wasn't that frightening guy that you was brought up to led to believe. Yeah, what a guy.
Bellew wasn't fooled, though, Spencer. He went on to say, no doubt that, to me, he is the greatest puncher boxing has ever seen. And I've got to add to that, what was the poundage being thrown in the ring when he fought Ron Lyle?
Oh, that was absolutely insane. Guys, please, you know, please, out of respect for George Foreman, go back and watch George Foreman, Ron Lyle. It's on YouTube. It's a 5-round war. It was Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year. Guys, you will not be disappointed. Absolutely insane.
And to bring it right up to the modern era, and the man who has shaped the future of boxing so brilliantly, we're all beneficiaries. From Turkey, Al Sheikh. Very sad news for me and the entire boxing world. The last boxing pillar of an unforgettable era passes away today. May his soul rest in peace. So here we have it, folks, here on talkSPORT. 3 men who changed the world of boxing. Foreman, up there again with Frazier and Ali. And the timing seems too good to be true, even for Colin Hart. How could he have even written it? But Colin Hart joins them too. Thank you for joining us. Spencer, thank you for having me on your show. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.